debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight, and it's a very special show this evening as we're bringing you a world exclusive. More on that in a moment. In just a few minutes, I'll take you through my clips of the week, highs and lows from GB News over the last 7 days, including plenty of on-air mistakes and hilarity. Also this hour, is Britain back in business? We'll talk to entrepreneur, businessman and Dragon's Den star Piers Linney. Live in the studio, radio and television broadcaster Carol McGiffin to discuss why billionaire entrepreneurs, eco-activists, prime ministers, former prime ministers and others have been gathering in Davos for the World Economic Forum. What does it mean to you and me? Are we in the throes of a depressing global government? Plus, Big Sam Allardyce on the show, former England manager, giving his team talk to the nation. We'll be discussing political leadership. Yes, indeed, lots to get through that. Also, after 10 o'clock, I'll speak to showbiz royalty Katie Price as she gives her first TV interview for 2 years. Lots to get through. It is Friday night. I want to stimulate you, inform you and entertain you along the way. Lots to get through. And first, the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you very much. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. The NHS will see the biggest strike action ever in the industry next month as the Unite union announced 10 further days of industrial action by ambulance workers in the coming weeks. They join 10,000 ambulance staff with the GMB union, along with the Royal College of Nursing, in joint action on the 6th of February. The workers across England, Wales and Northern Ireland are walking out in a long-running dispute over pay and staffing. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky has been holding talks with 50 Western nations in Germany today to garner further support in their fight against Russia. Kyiv have requested 300 tanks. The US announced a further £2 billion worth of support for Ukraine, while the UK says it will provide 14 Challenger tanks. Meanwhile, Germany have yet to make a decision on whether they will send tanks to the war-torn country. And the head of NATO's military committee, Admiral Rob Bauer, says countries must make their own decision on giving tanks to Ukraine. A new report into England's fire and rescue services says reforms are needed as a matter of urgency. The watchdog says just 2 of the 6 recommendations made by the Chief Inspectorate have been fulfilled. In an annual report, the Chief Inspector, Andy Cook, says he's frustrated at the lack of progress made since inspections started in 2018. But the Chief Fire Officer at Leicester Fire and Rescue, Callum Faint, said he's confident the force is improving. The Met Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, has promised a thorough review of the force's culture and standards in an effort to root out corrupt officers, such as former officer David Carrick. Mr Rowley said the next 2 years are critical to achieving our goals, including assurances such as investing in diversity to become an anti-racist organisation. Meanwhile, the National Police Chiefs Council are urging police chiefs across England and Wales to have all officers checked against national databases by the end of March. Well, this all comes in the wake of the crimes committed by former police officer Carrick, who admitted to 49 criminal charges, including 24 counts of rape. The Prime Minister has been given a fixed penalty notice by Lancashire Police for failing to wear a seatbelt whilst in the back of a moving car. The Prime Minister was filming a social media clip on his way to yesterday's Levelling Up announcement in the North West. He's already apologised, with his spokesman saying he made an error of judgment. In a statement in the last hour or so, Downing Street says Mr Sunak will comply with the fine. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. So much happening between now and 11. We kick off, as always, on a Friday with the now legendary clips of the week, my highlights from 7 days on GB News, the good, the bad and the ugly. Also this hour, is Britain back in business? We'll talk to entrepreneur, businessman and Dragon's Den star Piers Linney. Live in the studio, radio and television broadcaster Carol McGiffin will discuss why billionaire entrepreneurs, eco-activists, prime ministers and ex-prime ministers have been gathering in Davos for the World Economic Forum. What the hell is that? And why does it matter to you and me? Plus, we'll have Big Sam Allardyce as he gives his team talk to the nation. The former England manager will be telling us how he'd handled the public sector strikes, the NHS crisis, and whether Britain lacks leadership. After 9, in my big opinion, the BBC seems to have a problem with older presenters, even though it's older, loyal viewers and listeners who are keeping the organisation going. In its obsession with youth, the BBC is discarding the talents of some of its greatest stars. I won't be pulling my punches. That's my very special monologue all about the BBC at 9. In the big question, is home ownership a human right? We'll speak to property expert and TV host Martin Roberts, as well as Conservative MP James Daly. And just after 10 o'clock, I'll speak to showbiz royalty Katie Price as she gives her first TV interview for 2 years. That's Mark Meets just after 10. So it is Friday night, it's freezing cold outside and you're stuck indoors, so grab something cold and fizzy from the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's have a brilliant night in. What better way to start than my GB News clips of the week? It's time for a look back at the highs and lows of 7 days on air at GB News. It's an item which makes presenters cry and usually leads to the resignation of at least one sound engineer. And let's kick off with the brilliant Michelle Dewberry and one of our best contributors to the channel, the excellent Ben Habib, giving a seductive wink to the camera.
Former Brexit Party MEP and now the CEO of First Property Group, Ben Habib.
What's going on with his eye? Is it conjunctivitis? What's going on? Maybe a nervous tic? Let's take another look. What a babe. I've got to say, we have plenty of winkers on the channel, but this guy is in a league of his own. Ben Habib went on to forget his famous manners with some harsh words for his host and her employability.
Let's not forget, if you're a regular viewer, you will remember that Ben Habib is also the man that said he would never give me a job.
I didn't say never.
No, he did.
You could retake your GCSE.
Retake your GCSE, that is definitely a mic drop from Ben Habib. And as harsh as it gets. But I've got to say, having been led by professors and so-called experts into economic disaster over the last couple of years, my money is on Michelle's frankly refreshing brand of real-world common sense. Michelle, not for the first time in your career, I'm delighted to say you're hired. Now, Michelle makes headlines every night from 6 till 7 with compelling political debate and searing, unapologetic commentary. But sometimes it's what she's wearing that gets people talking.
I had £1 for every single one of you that's told me I look like Colonel Sanders from KFC tonight. I'd be absolutely minted.
Interesting stuff. Now, for those listening on GB News Radio, we're showing a photo of Michelle and Colonel Sanders, the famous founder of KFC. And yes, that's Michelle on the right. I might lend her my filler shave. It's time now for the weekly Sitting on the Fence award. As you know, the presenters at GB News are just so vanilla. What does my friend and colleague Nigel Farage really think about a top scientist telling us we shouldn't bring cake to work? See if you can work out where he really stands on this.
I am sick to death of these Puritans wanting to literally control every aspect of our lives. Please shut up, go away, do your job. We're not interested. We find you very boring. And to all of you, if it is your birthday, don't work from home. Take some cake into the office.
But what do you really think, Nigel? Of course, Nigel is right. And as the man behind Brexit, he's right to make the point that you can have your cake and eat it. Now, we've seen the good and the great of the global elite flying in their private jets to Davos in Switzerland, wagging their fingers to the great unwashed like you and me about climate change and the world economy. But there were one or two other surprise guests on that guest list, as revealed by our economics supremo, Liam Halligan, on Bev Turner's excellent morning programme.
But interestingly, representatives of Man United are at Davos because they're looking for a buyer.
No.
Absolutely.
Now, to paraphrase the boss of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, he's famous for saying, "You will own nothing and you will be happy." That's right, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Well, to paraphrase that, the Glazer family normally say, "You will win nothing and you will be happy." Come on, you Reds. Awkward moment of the week goes to our late-night newspaper review show headliners and the excellent host, Simon Evans, casting a spotlight on comedian Nick Dixon's love life or lack thereof.
Next story, we have Tuesday's Telegraph. I feel almost cruel asking your response for this, Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, thanks for giving me this one. This is revealed the true cost of being single. And finally, I'm a victim group, so it feels pretty good.
Oh, blimey, the cost of being single. Well, they don't spend it on clothes or razors, do they, Nick? Now, I happen to know that Nick Dixon is one of the most eligible bachelors in the country, one of the nation's finest satirists, a ready wit, great writer, plus he's a bit of a gym bunny as well. But here is how you attract a lady. That'll do it. Back to Nigel with some harsh words for the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt. I did say Hunt.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Why do they try to pretend they're normal human beings? They're not. They're a bunch of Oxbridge weirdos, in my opinion. And there he was. The entirety of the inflation problem. Nothing to do with me, Gov.
They've put something in Nigel's tea this week. He's right, of course. What a banker. Now, it's over to the fabulous presenter, political commentator and cleric, Calvin Robinson, with some strong words for the Church of England.
From my view, it seems the upper echelons of the Church of England are overseeing a managed decline, and their priority is to leave behind a perfectly embalmed liberal corpse.
Blimey. Calvin raises a very fair point, but I've got to say, based on that audition, I don't think his dream of becoming the next presenter of Jackanory will happen anytime soon. Daddy, I'm scared of the presenter. Let's take another listen.
A perfectly embalmed liberal corpse.
Corpse, blimey, you're scaring the kids. But we all know who the next presenter of Jackanory will be. Works every time. Now, Prince Harry has dominated the headlines in the last few weeks, culminating in a lively debate on my show on Sunday. I asked my panellists why Prince Harry had allowed his family to be attacked in this way. Peter Lloyd thinks he's got the answer.
He let it happen.
Sometimes people got goods.
Do you know what?
They got some goodies.
Can I be frank?
Please.
You know what it is? Hypnotised by vagina.
Hypnotised by vagina. Blimey. Back in my day, Paul McKenna did the job. And last but not least, veteran commentator Andrew Pearce was getting information on an important issue that affects all of us Brits.
Don't want to scrub your wok. So you obviously clean it with a green scourer, which is absolutely fine. And then what you do, you put it back on the heat and you make sure that all the water has evaporated.
Blimey, this is taking a while. I think I'll just file my nails.
Now, I do know some people that put a very, very thin layer of oil on just to keep it. But if it's dry, you shouldn't need to do that.
Go on.
What you're trying to do with a good carbon steel wok is build up a patina, which is that natural non-stick every time you use the wok. And the darker that goes, the more non-stick and the more flavour.
Is it over yet? Blimey, those are your clips of the week, and there's really only one way to sign off this item. Well, blow me, those were the clips of the week. In the next 7 days, if you see something noteworthy on the channel, do drop me an email, mark@gbnews.uk, and title the email Clips of the Week, and your clip may well feature on a future programme. Lots to get through in the next 3 hours. Katie Price telling her story, her first TV interview for quite some time, 2 years in fact. She's here with us after 10. In my 9 o'clock monologue, why has Ken Bruce left the BBC? I've got strong words for Auntie. How could they be asleep at the wheel on that one? He's got the biggest radio show in the country, and they let him go. Meanwhile, they pay Gary Lineker almost £2 million for Match of the Day. The world's gone mad. We'll get to that shortly. But next up, with surprising news on the economy, is Britain bouncing back? We'll ask a dragon from Dragon's Den.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest,
balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Katie Price's first live television interview for 2 years. That's at 10 o'clock in a Mark Meets special. Welcome back to the show. Now, are the prophets of doom being proved wrong? I've long been a proponent of a positive outlook when it comes to this country, notwithstanding the rigours of the Brexit transition, the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. It's my view that the fundamentals of the British economy are strong, which appear now to be borne out by recent data. So with the economy having unexpectedly grown in November and with bond purchases having actually delivered a surprise profit and with unemployment low and inflation set to halve, is the British economy bouncing back? Let's speak to a Dragon's Den star, of course, on the BBC, founder of monologues, a highly successful small business service provider. I'm delighted to welcome Piers Linney. Hi, Piers.
I was going to do a wink, but I'm not sure it's appropriate for this section.
Well, it would be very welcome, but no one is as sexy as Ben Habib, as you well know. Lovely to have you on the show tonight. Look, that was good news. I'm aware that we're not suddenly booming, but it was good news that we didn't see a contraction in the economy in November of last year.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I think there was a bit of a lull because of the Queen's funeral. There was a bit of a bounce because of Christmas, the World Cup, for example. But the figures are now showing that Christmas, there wasn't quite the bounce people were looking for and expected. So we might see a lot of companies that were depending on Christmas to hit their sales figures for the year, struggling coming into the new year. So I think that we need to, buckle up, including the Prime Minister. I think we all need to sort of think about being very cautious about going into this year. You're seeing the FTSE, not quite there. I'm not sure. Maybe tomorrow it could hit a high. I think the FTSE 250 is more relevant, and that's pretty high as well. But I don't think that's really giving us a true picture of the economy. If you think about, we've been printing money, inflation, interest rates are going up, the cost of debt's going up. Maybe people borrowed to afford Christmas. They've got to repay that loan at some point. I'm not convinced about how we even measure CPI and inflation itself. We don't even include the rising cost of rent. In the last change, they took out suits and put in vegan sausages. So it's quite arbitrary in terms of how they measure this. So I think you'd be very careful. I think that we're in for either looking at going into recession this year or bouncing around it.
So clearly, buckle up is your advice. However, the bigger picture is looking a little rosier, isn't it? With inflation set to come down, the global cost of energy is dipping as well as countries seek an alternative to Putin's oil and gas. And of course, unemployment still reassuringly low too. So in time, we will recover, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, these things are cyclical, aren't they? So there's going to be a difficult period of time and then you come out of it. And the key is to, be there and to survive and then thrive. And I don't just mean individual businesses. I'm very focused on small businesses, but I mean the economy as a whole. So you're right. The British economy, Britain itself, is in a very strong position. You saw, I think it was the PM saying that we should be the best place to start and operate a business. I completely believe in that. But I think you've got to be cautious about, running at it too hard. Inflation, hopefully, will get down to about 4%, I think the forecast is. Rising interest rates is a few tools we've got to actually make that happen. So I think you will see that happen. And things are getting better. If you're a consumer, you're going to see the energy price come down. If you're a small business, they've changed the cap. It's not quite as, it's more of a discount now. It's not quite as helpful as it was. So there are a few cliff edges for small businesses. Don't forget there's 5.5 million of them employing 13 million people. So that flows through the economy. So I agree with you. There's light at the end of the tunnel. But I think the end of the tunnel is a little bit further away than we expect.
We're hearing that, Piers, there are many Tory backbenchers who are pressurising the Prime Minister into cutting taxes, given the fact that with that surprise news of growth, albeit pretty modest in November of last year, that he's got enough money with which to cut taxes and stimulate growth. What's your view? Should the Chancellor and the Prime Minister cut taxes to make the country grow again?
That's very complicated, clearly. So I think it's a bit early. I mean, a lot of it's ideological, isn't it, about cutting taxes? So I'm a big believer in that, taxes should be, minimum, especially if you're looking at, growth, but the bottom line, you want as much to flow through to the bottom line that can be reinvested in businesses. I think it's too early, Mark, to start thinking about, cutting taxes. Let's see how the economy pans out. Let's see where we end up with, the various disputes about pay, how that might flow through to inflation, because that can have a marked impact, where interest is going to go. So I think it's how we're going to deal with the debt burden that we've sort of accumulated through COVID. The impact of Brexit as well, there still is one. We've not quite got to the bottom of that yet. So it's too early to start making these big changes. We saw, the Liz Truss try, and we saw how the markets reacted to that. So we should be careful, Mark.
Of course, you're a successful entrepreneur. You employ plenty of talented people. Do you think that unemployment will stay low? Because that's normally what happens when there's a recession. You get high unemployment. That's been the only positive of the economic outlook over the last 12 months.
Well, we're seeing it kind of turn around. You saw the Great Resignation. There are now more vacancies and there are people looking for work. So that we're in it. I don't quite fully understand it, how that actually computes. A lot of employers are struggling hiring people that used to be able to employ, from Europe. You can still do it, okay, that's fair, let's face it, but it's more complicated than it was. There's more paperwork. So I think that we are in a good place in terms of unemployment, but the economy's changing, Mark. We can't assume the world tomorrow is going to be looking like it was over the last, even a decade. The world's changing very, very quickly. You see new technologies. I don't know if you've had to play with a Chat GPT. I was playing with that today. These technologies are going to change the need for lots of not just manual labour, but also sort of the labour, the brain labour, really. People who are working it's not just taxi drivers, forklift truck drivers, administrators. It's lawyers, accountants, it's surgeons. So technology is going to change the world very quickly and a lot faster than we expect, and that's happening now.
Piers, a thrill to have you on the show. Do come back and see us soon. Piers Linney, who's a top entrepreneur. He is, of course, a star of Dragon's Den. And he's the founder of monologues, which is a highly successful small business service provider. Lots to get through, including later in the show, this.
On Mark Dolan tonight in a world exclusive, Katie Price joins us live to talk fame, love, money, plastic surgery and her hopes for the future.
Get tuned in for GB News. I'm meeting up with my old mate, Mark Dolan. It's been ages since I've done an interview with him.
That's Katie Price on Mark Dolan tonight on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, billionaire entrepreneurs, eco-activists, prime ministers, former prime ministers, the good and the great of the global elite have descended once again in the small Swiss town of Davos, poor them, for the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, an international non-governmental lobbying organisation. But what is the end game here? Why does it matter to you and me? Is the plan to boost the world economy, improve quality of life and save the planet? Or does this gathering represent the multi-millionaire corporate, political and media elites who are increasingly deciding the future on our behalf? Are we sleepwalking into a global government? Or do these people know better than us with their private jets? Let's speak to one of the best-known faces on terrestrial TV, writer, broadcaster and relatively loose woman, Carol McGiffin. Hi, Carol.
Relatively loose woman. Yes.
I will never let you forget the fact that in my fledgling broadcasting career, I was a sort of lowly assistant producer on a fabulous radio breakfast show.
That's right.
That you presented with Richard Skinner, who's a brilliant man.
Yeah. Oh my, that
and
one.
You were so nice to me. I mean, you've changed. You've become a monster because now you've got money.
Oh, God, I wish.
But yeah, so I've known you so long, and actually, it's very interesting to talk to you about this gathering in Davos because, you know, you've always been a very compelling commentator on all issues, and I think it's because you say it as you see it. And we'll get to COVID in a moment and your position on the COVID measures. But are there parallels with what's happening in Davos this week? The idea that something doesn't seem right?
Oh, God, something hasn't seemed right for 3 years now, I think it is. Yeah, the whole Davos thing, you know, when you think about the WEF and what it is, it's so unbelievable how many people don't know about the WEF and never heard of the WEF. And you can kind of say, oh, maybe it is a force for the good, the global good, for the benefit of the people.
Because they talk about poverty, they talk about the planet.
And climate change. But it isn't. It absolutely is not. I think it's hugely sinister. And, you know, it sounds a bit James Bond, but it is run, or it was started up by a guy called Klaus Schwab, who weirdly isn't at this meeting this time. In fact, there are 3 very obvious missing people there: Biden, Bill Gates, and Klaus Schwab. And Klaus Schwab lives in Switzerland, so, you know, I don't really know what...
And the WEF is his organisation?
It is. He started it, he created it, he's the head of it. He's the face of it, in fact. You know, and he's, you know, the guy, he likes dressing up, he's got no shame, he's a very weird character. And everything that they do, or they want to do, they tell you they're doing it. But people don't believe it because it's so extraordinary.
Well, that's right.
The aims that they have.
The language of the Great Reset is something that is associated with so-called conspiracy theorists.
Of course.
You will own nothing and you will be happy. This hasn't come from lonely teenagers in their grandmother's bedroom on a laptop. These are direct quotes from the World Economic Forum.
Absolutely. And the weird thing is you can feel it already happening. It is happening. People aren't owning anything. They're being told... Eventually, they won't be able to own a car. You won't be able to afford to drive a car. You won't own it. They're doing the 15-minute city thing, which, you know, a lot of people have never heard of again. It's like, you know, let's make sure that everybody's only 5 minutes from everything because they don't want people mingling. Now, what's changed from years previously, it was always about the Great Reset. That's how they would talk about it openly. This time, there's no real mention of the Great Reset. They're talking about... It's all about net zero and climate change, everything. There's a climate emergency. This is the words, the language that they use. And you've got people there like... Boris is there, I just noticed today for some reason. Al Gore's there, the one who had the very profitable film and... made a hell of a lot of money off the back of scaring people to death.
An Inconvenient Truth, yeah.
That's right, yeah. Put it into schools. It was shown in schools compulsorily. And it's changed from that to that. And then you've got Greta Thunberg there, walking around the streets saying these are the people that are causing the climate change. So it's almost as though, you know, she's kind of part of that, but she's kind of going against it. It's almost like the climate... She won't
stick to the narrative,
No, the narrative seems to be eating itself, right? And everybody's contradicting everybody else. And then you've got Tony Blair there. Now, if anything says to people, this is a very dangerous and strange organisation, then you just have to know that Tony Blair is there telling everybody about digital IDs, and getting third world countries...
Which he's been trying to do since he was in power.
A long, long time, yeah. And saying we need... And actually, he looks quite unhinged. I don't know if you've seen the videos of him there. He looks quite sort of nervous and kind of worried that he's not going to get away with it this time.
Well, Blair is a case in point.
Yeah.
That, yes, he's an ex-Prime Minister, but he's behaving like he's still in power.
Yes.
And that's what bothers me about this gathering in Davos, is it's the elite. It's not actual elected representatives. It's just powerful people. And I find that insidious because supposedly they're changing the world for our, you know, in our best interests.
For the better, yeah.
But out with our say in terms of what that means in reality, such as, I don't know, will we be given a carbon footprint so that once you've taken one flight a year, that's you?
Oh, God,
and you've got to stay home.
That's another thing that's happening. You know, you'll own nothing, we won't be happy. But the carbon footprint thing is all part, I think, of that digital ID thing, where you've got to be able to have something to keep that digital ID and the social credit and everything else. The way they can completely control you. And Tony Blair's talking again about the vaccines, multiple shots. We have to know who's vaccinated. We have to know who isn't vaccinated. Why? No, you don't need to know that. And they talk about pandemics like they're planning another one. And if you read between the lines and listen to actually what they're saying, it's very, very, very scary, actually. I think it's really scary. And I think if more people paid attention to it, more people would have woken up properly to what happened in the first pandemic. Because it was exaggerated, we know that now. We know that a lot of the information that's coming out now has proved the conspiracy theories.
Do you mean some of the anecdotal
right.
reports from China? Or do you think it was the slanted media coverage of the pandemic early doors?
Well, yeah, I do think it was the MSM being controlled by the government, because a lot of NHS, highly respected NHS people are coming out now and saying that they were told to put down deaths as COVID deaths. Now, if you know how many people actually died only of COVID, under 65, say, without any comorbidities, just from COVID, it's around about 2,000. And people, I've been saying this since the start, that these figures have been available to everybody on the NHS website on a spreadsheet. And I've been telling people this from the start, and they just go, oh, no, it's at least 2
million.
Well,
we had that debate, didn't we, about, dying from or with COVID.
Exactly.
And look, the figures have been, bandied about left, right and centre. There is a flip side to the argument, which is you could argue that everything that's being discussed at Davos is a matter of importance to all of us. So if it's the pandemic, aren't they within their rights to say, what do we do if there's another pandemic? Because people did die of COVID. Maybe that could be prevented if they got their ducks in a row. What's the problem with a digital ID? Perhaps it will help with illegal immigration. And if you haven't broken the law, have you got anything to hide? And also, the majority of climate scientists would say that really the planet is heating up. We've got to get those emissions down, and that everything that's being discussed at Davos is aimed at that end. So basically, everything they're trying to do is good.
But that's how they sell it to people, isn't it? They sell it to everyone because they tell you it's going to be good for you. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to improve everything. But it absolutely is not. The digital ID thing is a very Chinese idea. And they're already using it in China now, where people have to earn social credit points in order to just live their lives, to get into their own homes and things like that. So, no, it isn't OK for them to talk about that in the way that it's going to benefit all of us, because almost none of it will. The climate thing, the pandemic, they had pandemic preparedness plans already in place before the last one, and they ditched it all and turned everybody into prisoners in their own homes.
Ironically, Sweden kept the British pandemic preparedness plan, which they stuck to. You don't think, because we've agreed on so much in the last few years. Of course, that mainstream scientists, or, the government are very, very clear that the vaccine is 100% safe and effective, and that lockdowns needed to happen, otherwise lives would have been lost. But
they can't know that, though, Mark. They can't know that, can they? How many lives have been lost because they locked down? The mental health problems that people have now, the children that have been damaged immeasurably by being shut in their homes and not being able to go to school. There are so many things that the lockdowns cause. People are still scared. People are still acting as though there's some kind of deadly virus. And they talked about that virus as though it was the deadliest thing in the world, and it absolutely was not. It never was. It was removed from the list of high-consequence infectious diseases in March in 2020, just after it was discovered. Or it became a thing. So people still started, walking around and keeping their distance and putting the masks on. And only when they stood up, they put the mask on, or they'd sit down. I mean, it was all nonsense. And when people look back at it now, this is why they're really trying to get away with another one now. They keep talking about, they tried it with the monkeypox, didn't really work. They tried it with the other one, XBB 1.85 or whatever it was. That didn't work, because I think people really have woken up and seen how ridiculous it was. A lot of people won't admit it. They won't admit that they fell for it, but...
Well, I think maybe, calling it all nonsense might be a bit strong, because, people did die, people got ill with COVID, hospitalised, even the Prime Minister. So, it wasn't a fake thing, was it? And surely...
I'm not saying it wasn't a thing, Mark.
No.
I've never said it wasn't a thing.
But also, you can't imagine that they're planning another pandemic. You mean they're planning for another pandemic?
No, I don't think they're planning
Preparing for one?
No.
You think they're planning one?
Yes. Oh, God, I do, yeah. I mean,
really?
To me, it looks...
Where's your evidence for that?
It looks really obvious. I haven't got the evidence. It's just what they talk about. It's the way they say it. They say, for the next pandemic. They never used to say that. The last pandemic we had was in 1918. You know, that's like 100 years ago.
But are they not talking about how globalised the world is and we get on airplanes, so if somebody catches something, it will spread in a way that it wouldn't have 100 years ago?
What's changed, though, Mark, in the last 100 years?
International travel?
No, it hasn't really. People have been travelling for years. They want you to stop with the carbon footprint thing. They're measuring your carbon everywhere you go, everything you do. Your gas bill, your electricity bill has got a carbon monitor on it. This is why they need the digital ID, so that they can log it all into that and then switch you off whenever they feel like it.
Well, listen, I'll never switch you off. Brilliant debate, fascinating stuff. And Carol, you have been a truly principled voice for 3 years. You've taken a hit. You've probably lost a few friends.
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
But they weren't your friends in the first place because, you know.
Well, I feel sorry for people who don't like me because I saw what was happening and I still see what's happening. And they can't handle the truth, I think, those people.
There you go.
So.
Well, look, there you go. Thrilled to have you on the programme. Come back soon, please, Carol McGiffin. Some will agree with Carol McGiffin, every word. Others will disagree. So what is your view? mark@gbnews.uk. Are we sleepwalking into a global government off the back of a week of finger-wagging from Davos? Lots to get through. Next, we'll talk about leadership in the country with Big Sam Allardyce. See you shortly. Plus, by the way, I should mention this. We've got reality star, total icon of showbiz, Katie Bryce tells her story after 10. You won't want to miss it.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back. In approximately 2 years' time, Britain will be faced with a choice: Rishi Sunak or Sir Keir Starmer as our PM. But with the economy in freefall, with the NHS on its knees, and with Britain slipping down the global pecking order, do we deserve better leadership? Is a changing of the guard at number 10 really just the changing of deck chairs on the Titanic? Let's speak to a man who knows all about leadership. Big Sam Allardyce is one of the most respected figures in football. He's had plenty of top jobs at England and West Ham, for example. But in his career, he's also often inherited weak squads of players at clubs under financial pressure, facing relegation or stuck in the Championship, and yet has still brought them great success, often taking them up and, of course, famously keeping them up. How does he do it? And what can our politicians learn from Big Sam? It's time for Big Sam's Team Talk, and he joins us now. Evening, Gaffer.
Good evening, Mark. Unfortunately, I cannot see you on my screen, so that's very unfortunate, but obviously I can hear you plain and clear, sir.
Well, listen, Sam, I think you've dodged a bullet because I'm wearing a very annoying yellow tie tonight. Sam, let's talk about political leadership. How important is it that Britain has great management from the top?
I think that's the top priority, Mark, to be honest with you. I think leadership, unfortunately, can't be taught in Oxford, Cambridge or Eton, where it seems most of the Conservative MPs come from. It comes through your understanding of people, your understanding of the job that you do and what position you're in. And if you're in a leadership position, is how do you improve that position and how do you improve the workload and with the people who work with you. And they don't work for you, they actually work with you. And I think you have to do the most difficult thing of all, and that's gain respect. And respect is much, much harder to gain than being liked. So across the board and across, you go over many years and looking at what you do with football players, you have to be a leader to lead them into success. And we deal with people, that's our product. Obviously, most people in industry deal with an actual product and forget about the people, I think. So understanding the people that you work with and getting the best out of them is imperative to your leadership and your choices of your leadership group that sit underneath you, that then have the opportunity and the power and, of course, the will to go and be successful in their own right is what you want. You want somebody to be with you who's actually better than you at certain things that you're not as good at. And if you can find that combination, then you have the perfect balance of being able to sit down and challenge each other and make the right decisions going forward. And then obviously we would pass that over to the team, pass that over to the players and constantly review and hopefully bring success, which is obviously a lot more difficult in government, of course. But certainly it's something that should be looked at in terms of who are you choosing? Why are you choosing him? Is he the best person for the job? Who is the best person for the job? Can we find him? Can we get him?
Sam, I don't want to drag you into party politics. I know that you're someone that would rather unite than divide, but we could speak generally about the character and values of Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister. He's clearly got family values. He's clearly got a work ethic. But then again, he's married to a billionaire. So what does he know about the real world and about hard-working Brits struggling with the cost of living crisis? And what about Keir Starmer? Again, a bright and accomplished man. He's also clearly an experienced public administrator as a former top lawyer. But, I mean, do you rate either of them as leadership material?
In all honesty, Mark, they don't inspire me. They don't get me on the edge of my seat and think that I'd like to vote for you. I'd like you to take the country forward. And obviously, I voted Conservative for the first time with Boris. And of course, I made a mistake there, didn't I, of course, unfortunately. But I thought he could be the right type of leader at that particular time, or the best one in the pack, if you like. But neither of the leaders in Labour or Conservative actually inspire me that they're actually going to do what they say and stick to that and inspire the country to come out of this deep depression that we're in at the moment. And I know it's not all their fault. I know it's a world problem at the moment, but they certainly the Tories at the moment could do better without the backbiting and the infighting that we've experienced just recently.
Would we be better off in the hands of Boris, Big Sam? No, not now. I think that he's had his time, a very, very difficult time, may I add. I mean, who would have expected that when you're running the country as a Prime Minister, you would have to face an unknown, and certainly COVID was an unknown at that particular time, and obviously lots of things were handled extremely badly. But there was obviously one good thing in his favour, that we did find a vaccine, and that vaccine is proven to work, which is very, very important. What are your thoughts about the strikes, Sam? I think we can agree that there are many in the public sector who merit a pay rise, but you know about running a tight budget as a top former manager at some brilliant clubs that were frankly pretty broke. Can Britain afford these pay rises, especially with inflation raging as it is?
Well, I think if we take the most important one, Mark, and the most important one is that the government's putting people's lives at stake by not settling the nurses or the ambulance service. You know, and they have to face the fact that if you look at the background of it, and obviously I am not overwhelmed with stats and facts, but I do know when I speak to them that all it's been over the years is cut the beds, cut the staff, cut the vehicles, cut the ambulances, can't find the nurses. And if you want to fill 130,000 jobs, doing what you're doing at the moment is not going to encourage anybody whatsoever to come and join the NHS. So they've got to think of a way to sort out certainly the NHS and others from there on and get them back working. And then they've got to think of a plan on how they're going to fill these 130,000 jobs, because at the moment they're never going to do it by the way that they're acting. So they deserve more money. They've been underpaid for many, many years, particularly the job that they do. They've put their lives at risk over the pandemic. Many people have died because of their dedication to the NHS. And they're looking back now and saying, you know, we all clapped for you, but where's the reward? And I think that's what we've got to do now. And the only way we can reward them is financially, because they are struggling desperately. I mean, nurses going to food banks. Come on. Can't be right.
Big Sam, I've only got a couple of seconds left. Is there any chance that the Conservatives could retain your vote at the next election?
No.
OK, there you go. A straight answer to a straight question. Gaffer, I look forward to another Big Sam team talk very, very soon. Always a privilege to have you on the programme. One of the most respected and successful football managers of his generation, Big Sam Allardyce. All the big names speak to Mark Dolan tonight, speak to GB News. Speaking of big names, Katie Price is my Mark Meets guest live at 10 o'clock. She'll talk fame, she'll talk family values, she'll talk about her career, plastic surgery and much, much more. We've also got some of your favourite elements from Mark Dolan tonight, including the papers at exactly 10:30 sharp. And next, in my big opinion, I'll be dealing with the BBC. Why have they let the Radio 2 star Ken Bruce leave? He's got the biggest show on British radio. Is it because he's old? We'll discuss ageism at the BBC next.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in my big opinion monologue, the BBC seems to have a problem with older presenters, even though its older, loyal viewers and listeners that are keeping the organisation going are the ones who love people like Ken Bruce. Why has Ken Bruce left Radio 2? I'll be commenting on that very shortly. My Mark Meets guest, just after 10, is showbiz royalty Katie Price, live on the programme giving her first television interview for 2 years. We've got some absolute truth bombs coming, let me tell you. In the big question, is home ownership a human right? We'll be joined by property expert and TV presenter Martin Roberts and Conservative MP with strong views on the housing market, James Daly. In the news agenda, is MP Lee Anderson right that Brits on a lower income should budget better, or is that an insult? Also, could you survive on just 2 alcoholic drinks a week? And after an internet storm on the topic, how often should you wash your clothes? Lots to get through. After the headlines with the always clean Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you very much. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The NHS will see the biggest strike action ever in the industry next month as the Unite Union announced 10 further days of industrial action by ambulance workers in the weeks to come. They join 10,000 ambulance staff with the GMB Union, along with the Royal College of Nursing, in joint action on the 6th of February. The workers across England, Wales and Northern Ireland are walking out in a long-running dispute over pay and staffing. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky has been holding talks with 50 Western nations and Germany today to garner further support in their fight against Russia. Kyiv have requested 300 tanks. The US announced a further £2 billion worth of support for Ukraine, while the UK says it will provide 14 British Challenger tanks. Meanwhile, Germany have yet to make a decision on whether they will send tanks to the war-torn country. And the head of NATO's military committee, Admiral Rob Bauer, says countries must make their own decision on giving tanks to Ukraine. A new report into England's fire and rescue services says reforms are needed as a matter of urgency. The watchdog says just 2 of the 6 recommendations made by the Chief Inspectorate have been fulfilled. In an annual report, the Chief Inspector, Andy Cook, says he's frustrated at the lack of progress made since the inspections began in 2018. But the Chief Fire Officer at Leicester Fire and Rescue, Callum Faint, said he's confident the force is improving. The Met Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, has promised a thorough review of the force's culture and standards in an effort to root out corrupt officers, such as former officer David Carrick. Mr Rowley said the next 2 years are critical to achieving our goals, including assurances such as investing in diversity to become an anti-racist organisation. Meanwhile, the National Police Chiefs Council are urging police chiefs across England and Wales to have all officers checked against national databases by the end of March. It comes in the wake of the crimes committed by former police officer Carrick, who admitted to 49 criminal charges, including 24 counts of rape. The Prime Minister has been given a fixed penalty notice by Lancashire Police for failing to wear a seatbelt whilst in the back of a moving car. The Prime Minister was filming a social media clip on his way to yesterday's Levelling Up announcement in the northwest. He's already apologised, with his spokesman saying he made an error of judgment. In a statement, Downing Street says Mr Sunak will comply with the fine. That could be up to £500. And news just into us in the last few minutes, and Chris Hipkins is set to become the new leader of the Labour Party and the next Prime Minister of New Zealand. Mr Hipkins replaces Jacinda Ardern, who resigned just yesterday after 5.5 years of political leadership. He's expected to be confirmed as the new leader on Sunday. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, you're with GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
My thanks to Tatiana Sanchez, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, in just a moment, the BBC seems to have a problem with older presenters, even though its older, loyal viewers and listeners are the ones keeping the organisation going. I'll be commenting on the departure of Ken Bruce from Radio 2, and I won't be pulling my punches. That's coming up shortly. In the big question, as a generation of Brits are set to be locked out of the housing market, we ask, is home ownership a human right? We'll be joined by property expert and TV presenter Martin Roberts, as well as Conservative MP James Daly, who has strong views on the housing market. My Mark Meets guest is showbiz royalty Katie Price, as she gives her first TV interview for 2 years. That's at 10. At 10:30, as always, we'll have a look at tomorrow morning's papers with full panel reaction. In the news agenda, is MP Lee Anderson right that Brits on a lower income should budget better? Also, based upon new medical advice, could you survive on just 2 alcoholic drinks a week? Good luck with that. And after an internet storm on the topic, how often should you wash your clothes? We'll discuss that and lots of other burning issues of the day with my all-star panel of journalist and best-selling author Hilary Freeman, broadcaster, presenter and the best-looking man on GB News, Aidan McGee. I know when I'm beat. And model, health guru and TV personality Angie Best. Talking of how often should you wash your clothes, let me tell you that all 3 of them are dry cleaned. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. And this show has a golden rule. 1, we don't break. What is that rule? We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. And tonight, Katie Price live at 10. But first, let's start with this. Beyond our ken. BBC radio legend Ken Bruce has been poached by commercial radio after 4 decades as the king of mid-mornings on Radio 2. Now, the BBC are keen to stress that he was offered a new contract, and Bruce himself has said that he's ready for a new challenge. But there's more to this than meets the eye, or meets the ear. After all, it's the radio. You're welcome. Because Radio 2 has seen a mass exodus of its premium older talent. Steve Wright, master of afternoon radio, sacked. Not the right decision. The talented Vanessa Feltz released from the morning show. Was her crime being over 60? Well, she said almost as much this week when speaking to ITV. Broadcasting legend Simon Mayo, first forced into an excruciating drive-time partnership with the hipper, younger Joe Wiley, before leaving not just Radio 2, where he's been for years, but leaving the BBC altogether, where he's been for decades. This seems to be a cultural issue across the whole organisation. Is it ageism? You tell me. Miriam O'Reilly, one of the former hosts of the TV show Country File, won a claim of age discrimination against the Beeb. She lost her job in 2008 when Country File was moved to a primetime slot. The BBC replaced her with younger presenters. In her witness statement, Miss O'Reilly said, "I felt as if my life had been cancelled because of something I had no control over, getting older." We're told Arlene Phillips was taken off strictly for being too old, replaced by a more youthful Alicia Dixon. Now, I'm in broadcasting. I understand it's a competitive business. If you don't do the numbers, you're out. And I'm pleased to say, thanks to you, I'm normally beating Sky News about now. And the Mark Dolan Tonight Show is the home of viral videos, where my monologues and interviews have so far clocked up over 4 million online views since the start of the year. Well, Ken Bruce, Simon Mayo, Steve Wright, Vanessa Feltz, all of these legends were delivering the numbers too. Ken Bruce's show is the most listened to radio programme in the country. So why is the BBC letting him go? Well, in my view, it's their obsession with chasing young listeners and viewers that, frankly, they'll never get. Because young people don't watch telly in the same way that we used to. They don't listen to radio in the same way. They've got streaming, they've got YouTube, they download content. It's all fragmented. And the listeners and viewers that actually keep the BBC going are the older listeners and viewers who love the likes of Ken Bruce so much. It's older people who willingly pay the licence fee, but who are not being served by the organisation itself. Now, let me say that the BBC obviously want to give opportunities to younger talent, and they would argue that new voices are going down a treat with the audience, including at Radio 2. And they have a whole raft of television and radio programmes dedicated to an older audience, and plenty of old talent as well. But who in their right mind would let Ken Bruce go? And whilst we're told that the talented Zoe Ball on the Radio 2 breakfast show enjoys a salary of just under £1 million, that's right, £1 million, it's reported that Bruce, with the biggest show on the network, is on 400,000. So that's $1 million versus 400,000. Great money, but barely enough to pay for Gary Lineker's cufflinks on Match of the Day. And with 8.5 million listeners a week to his radio show, Bruce is the jewel in the crown. 400 grand? He should get $1 million because he is one in a million. Now, Bruce is a proud man and he's discreet. He will get a bumper pay rise at Greatest Hits Radio, and he will take listeners off Auntie, big time. So it could well be that Ken Bruce is seeking a bit of a payday before hanging up his microphone, feather the nest and all that. But he should be getting that at an organisation where he's already over-delivering at the tender age of 71. He's at the height of his powers. He's got the biggest radio show in the country. he could do another decade, if not more. The BBC seems to have a problem with older presenters, foolishly thinking the audience don't want to hear them or see them. Well, here at GB News, we take a different view, where some of the greatest and most established and experienced broadcasting talent have a welcome platform. We've got Alistair Stewart, an evergreen news genius. The fabulous Anne Diamond, veteran of breakfast television. Speaking of which, TV icon Eamon Holmes. Angela Rippon, one of my childhood broadcasting heroes, on this network. The list goes on. And I make every effort on this show to be as diverse as possible, including in relation to age. So, for example, we have the likes of Diddy David Hamilton, who is an unmissable fixture on Mark Dolan Tonight. He's better than ever at 84 years young. All of these over 60s are far from over the hill. They are, as I've said, at the height of their powers. They're not oldies, they are goldies. And for Radio 2 to let Bruce go, host of the biggest radio show in the country, they cannot be serious. Now, what's your view? Do you agree? Do you disagree? mark@gbnews.uk. Let me know your thoughts. I'll get to your emails shortly reacting to that and the big stories of the day. My all-star panel, journalist and best-selling author Hilary Freeman, broadcaster, journalist and the best-looking man on GB News, Aidan McGee, and model, health guru and TV personality, Angie Best. Angie, I want to ask you about this. I'm having trouble aging the panel because you all look like teenagers to me. But can we talk about the departure of Ken Bruce? I wouldn't normally focus on a rival broadcaster, but I think this is an important moment in the national conversation.
Is that guided to me?
Yeah, Angie, what is your view? I think that it's a mistake letting Ken Bruce go.
What is my view? I beg your pardon. I was asleep, babe. I'm 70. You know, it's late at night for me.
No,
what can I tell you?
Let me tell you that if Ken Bruce was here, he'd have asked the question properly.
70 is the new 50. That's what I say. I must tell you quickly, though, I did a really very, very, very good pilot for the BBC on arthritis, right? And the person who came from the BBC came back and said, oh, we don't want it. We don't want anything to do with old people.
Really? So this was a producer at the BBC who did not want to feature an issue that affected older people, which is arthritis.
Yeah, he figured arthritis was just for old people, which it's not. But
I mean, could this be just a random individual that does not represent the whole organisation?
Well, I don't know. That was my experience with them. They didn't want anything that represented old people.
OK. And what do you think? I mean, how do you feel that the media treats older people, Angie?
I think the media treat us OK. I think there's a few who are up there in their suits with their big bellies and very toxic who don't know better. And it's a shame because the older you get, the more experience you have, the more you know, the more you've seen, the better you are at understanding everything. So the more knowledge you have to give and the more insight you have into situations. So, you know, it's a mistake in my mind.
I agree. I mean, look, this is my attitude, I feel, Aidan, is that the Beeb look at someone like Ken Bruce and they just think, oh, he's over the hill. When are we going to get rid of this old codger? Except the inconvenient truth is that he's the host, and I can't say this too often, he's the host of the most listened to radio programme in the United Kingdom, and he's left. How so?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I know a little bit about this because it was about 4 years ago, my previous employer, I actually wrote a 13,000 word thesis about their editorial direction, and part of it was that I felt that they were discarding older talent before their time. And even commercially, I felt it was a really ruinous route to go down by almost chasing an audience that isn't there. So they were trying to be down with the kids, and it wasn't really working because in reality this was just middle-aged white blokes trying to produce content for an audience that had never engaged with the channel. They felt that by having big numbers on YouTube or elsewhere on social media, they felt that by bringing these people onto our channel, they would bring their audience with them. That's never been the case. It doesn't translate like that. Sometimes their content offering is successful because of the medium it's on, because it's on social media. In addition to that, I would also say that GB News, I would say, performs a more sort of traditional output, if you like, if that's the right way to put it. And then we discovered, certainly in the early months of our output, I don't know about now, I've no reason to think it would change, but we're actually engaging with younger people more than we ever thought we were.
Yeah.
So I think commercially, and there's precedent for this as well. I mean, newspapers tried this years ago. I remember when the Daily Express, back in the mid-2000s or early 2000s, they employed Rosie Boycott to try and engage with a younger audience. And so suddenly you got pictures of whales and dolphins on the front, an environmental campaign to try and engage with a different kind of audience while alienating the traditional army sergeant from Tunbridge Wells. Now, people don't divorce their newspaper or their TV viewing habits very easily. I think about it for quite a long time. I remember my father, when I was a kid, he always took the Sunday Express and just got fed up with it after a while and eventually went to the Mail on Sunday. And you know what, Mark? Once you lose those viewers, that audience, those listeners, they don't come back. This is not a choice between Boots and Superdrug or Tesco and Asda. No. This is something much more serious than that, much more fundamental. And once they're gone, they're gone. The other thing I would say is that commercially, again, it's a foolhardy route to go down because commercially, older people tend to have more money. We have an ageing population, but it'll probably never be this young again. You may as well consolidate what you've got rather than trying to chase an audience which is probably never going to engage with you.
Too right. Hilary Freeman, do you think the BBC is institutionally ageist?
Well said.
I don't think it's institutionally ageist. I think that it's trying to move with the times, and it doesn't, as Aidan said, it's lost direction. It doesn't know how to capture that younger audience. It's the same with newspapers. You know, I remember when I started off in newspapers, and I remember thinking, oh my God, when I get to 40, that's it. You know, I'm over the hill. There'll be nothing. Newspapers weren't interested, magazines weren't interested in over 40s. And that has all changed because newspapers have realised that they've got to keep that older audience and move and keep them and move with them, because trying to get the younger audience isn't working. And I think the BBC needs to do the same. It needs to value its older readers, its older viewers, its older listeners, and try other ways to get younger people.
Absolutely right. More on this to come. My Mark Meets guest at 10 is Katie Price in her first television interview in 2 years. But next in the big question, is home ownership a human right? See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory,
twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion monologue with the departure of Ken Bruce from Radio 2 is the BBC ageist. Now, let me stress, they've not fired him. He was offered a new contract, but he was on 400 grand for the biggest radio show in the country. His rival on The Breakfast Show, £1 million a year. Is that unfair? Let's have a look at your reaction. How about this from Megan? Hi, Mark. Seems the BBC hates every ist and ism other than ageism. Oh, and lately, biological females as well. Les says, hi, Mark. The BBC is deliberately trying to turn Radio 2 into Radio 1. Just look at the lineup of the replacement presenters that they've brought in over recent years to replace the well-established, much-loved older presenters. They risk losing all of their older listeners, and the younger generation will not bother to tune in to Radio 2. Thank you for that one, Les. Nicola, hi, Mark. The BBC presenters chiefly have no dynamic, do not flirt sometimes. No subtle sex appeal. It's perfectly bland, mostly peculiar women. They seem to remove anything truly human in a recognisable form. They are formless. They've done this to try to appeal to everyone and end up appealing to no one. Well, Nicola, thank you for that. I do hope I've got a bit of sex appeal. I won't hold my breath. How about this from Julian? Julian says the crazy BBC are just proving by their actions that it's not fit for purpose for the modern era. It's about time the licence fee is abolished and the BBC enters the real world of commercial television. In my opinion, it wouldn't last 5 minutes then, and good riddance. However, Steve says, Mark, I love the BBC. It's worth every penny. And there are plenty of older presenters, including one of the biggest legends, David Attenborough. And last but not least for now, Grant says, hi, Mark, great show. The BBC are getting rid of older people because they're not agreeing with or are influenced by their woke ideology. Grant, thank you for that. Keep those emails coming, mark@gbnews.uk. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Tonight, the Mail report that a generation of Brits will be locked out of the housing market forever, with new figures revealing how some first-time buyers would need to save up for 15 years just to get on the housing ladder. That's 15 years for a deposit, by which time, of course, house prices will have increased further, meaning the dream of home ownership is beyond the reach of many. But does it matter? Should we follow the European route of a rental market, or is home ownership a human right? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome Conservative MP for Bury North, James Daly. Hi, James.
Hi, Mark. You okay?
I'm very well. Happy Friday. Thanks very much for giving up a chunk of your evening to discuss this. It's a big term, isn't it? A human right. And clearly, you know, accommodation, you know, roof over your head, food on your plate, that is a human right. But do you think it's an important right that you know you could get on the housing ladder as a Brit?
Well, that's an important right, but I think you put your finger on it, Mark, about is this a legal right that you're talking about? Is it a right that's enforceable through the courts? We can't have a situation where home ownership is a right that's legally enforceable. What happens when people don't pay the mortgage or don't pay the bill? Is the state going to pay that forever? So in terms of, you know, we've seen it with rent controls or state control of housing costs. It just simply doesn't work. One of my concerns in respect to this is a really serious issue regarding the delivery of a housing stock that people of all ages can buy. But it does come down to this thing about the state doesn't have the answer to everything. Our role is to provide houses within the local area where people live that are affordable. And I'm afraid, Mark, it comes down to, I don't need to be blunt about it, in most times it comes down to useless local councils who do not deliver a vision for their area. You know, it's so easy. I am a Conservative MP, so I would say this, but blame the government for literally everything. The government for years and years and years have been using housing assessment need figures and have deliberately, how can I put it, created, they're based on 2014 population projections, which are not accurate. And the reasons why they did that was because they wanted local authorities to build as many houses as they possibly could. Local authorities, Mark, will not do it. The other thing to say is that in the North of England, where I'm an MP, I'm sure throughout the country, town centres, brownfield sites, there's loads of places to build houses. The local authorities have the planning function. Why don't they get on with it and do it? But it's too easy to blame the government. I think there's a bigger argument to say the government keep giving out billions of pounds regarding brownfield regeneration, and nothing ever happens. I could go on, Mark, but
yes.
It's really.
However, James, would the local authorities not argue that they need money to build these houses, and that's where the budget is so lacking, and that is the fault of central government?
Now, local authorities in general can't be bothered, so they subcontract planning, their sort of planning function to, major housing developers. Major housing developers want to build, as we couldn't quite understand in the commercial world, 3, 4, 5-bedroom houses at an absolute premium. We've seen, government policy, which has got very, well-intentioned with Help to Buy, but that created inflation within the housing market. That pushed the cost of housing up. And so, local authorities can work with ALMOs, they can work with housing associations, they can work with the private sector to deliver truly affordable housing. In my area, we need affordable housing for young people. We need housing for older people to downsize. We don't have that. The local authority in Bury don't have an answer to that. And I'm not coming here to have a go at them. But it's so easy to blame the governments of anything. We need to get away from politics of just simply saying they are to blame, rather than at a local level taking responsibility. And I still think at heart, Mark, we can talk at, I understand the point you're making. It's a really, really important point about saving up over 15 years. But we need to encourage within people that it is a great thing to own a house, to save money, to get on the housing market at the earliest opportunity, to have a good job, to have a well-paid employment, to be able to live in the area where you live. So it's a nuanced question, but we got to get away from simply just saying that everything, including housing, is somehow a right that the government will pay forever for you. It isn't. It's time for people to be responsible, do the right thing, save up the money, work as hard as they can, and there is still the housing options even now in a lot of parts of the country, not in all, not in London and not in various parts of the country, but in a lot of parts of the country, you can still get a house, as a first-time buyer.
Indeed. I think the broader concern, James, that I'd have is that if a generation of young people feel that they can't get on the housing ladder, there's no hope of getting on the housing ladder, even if they do quite well. Let's imagine, it's a sort of joint household income of £60,000. You've got perhaps a school teacher and, a nurse who cohabit. And even they, in a city like London or Manchester or Glasgow, can't get on the housing ladder. There is a danger that this generation will disengage with the economy altogether because they don't have a stake in it, and possibly give up the idea of market capitalism altogether, which could usher in a Corbyn-type figure in the future.
Well, I think you put your finger on a very important point of modern politics. I touched on it earlier. One of the worrying things for me in general about politics now is it literally is about how much money you can give to people. If a Conservative politician comes and says, we're going to invest 10 billion in this, the other side come and say 12 billion. We have no direction as to how this money is going to be invested for the common good in respect of this. Mark, it is not genius. If we have proper people, if we have people with the right talent in local authorities working with the private, I could name 25 companies now that could go and work with every local authority in the country to deliver housing that we need. The problem is that just building houses, as we have shown in the last few years, doesn't mean they're affordable, doesn't mean it's the type of housing we need. I'm lucky enough to work in central London. As you quite rightly say, public sector workers can't afford to live there. My seat in Bury, I have a huge workout rate for people working in the centre of Manchester because they can't afford to live there. Manchester's building a lot of properties, but it's all hugely expensive flats. It's not family homes. It's not catering for people's needs. So, it's the frustration of this, Mark. People say we've got to do something. Nobody ever has an answer, but we just need people in place at a local level, at a regional level, who want to deliver. Because you can do it in Bury. Me and you, Mark, will have to go out in Bury one day. I'll take you out there. I can show you No, but we could build, 5,000 houses. The whole, in terms of how we regenerate housing, the high street in many, many places, we've got to get housing in there. We've got to bring people closer to these urban centres. But we don't do it because either people are incompetent or can't be bothered, or it's not in the interest of developers, who don't want to waste the time spending a lot of money on sort of regenerating brownfield sites. Go to a nice field in the green belt, stick 5-bedroom, houses on it, charge £500,000, and they're happy. And that's what our planning policy has been for years and years and years. And local councillors get away with murdering this of all political persuasions. It's time they actually stood up and delivered for their areas. How many times, Mark, do you hear a councillor say to you, this is what I want my local area to look like. I want these houses there for affordable, but they don't do it. It's easy to blame people like me, and that's the way it goes. But you are quite right in terms of where we're going. We need to ensure that people feel they've got a stake, and the way that is that we have a wide range of our housing stock in all parts of the country.
A debate that will continue. James, a very delightful honour to have you on the show. James Daly is the Conservative MP for Bury North. Thank you, James. We'll catch up again soon. Your reaction, Mark at gbnews.uk. We've been asking you in a GB News Mark Dolan Tonight poll, is home ownership a human right? 55% said no, but a surprisingly large number, 45%, said yes, it is. Coming up, my Mark Meets guest is Katie Price. She's live at 10. It's her first TV interview in 2 years. But next, as a pair of adoptive parents return their autistic child, should adoption be for life? See you shortly.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
As a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'll get to your emails shortly, but in the news agenda, reacting to the big stories of the day, my panel, journalist and best-selling author Hilary Freeman. We've got broadcaster, journalist and expert on all matters, Aidan McGee, and model, health guru and TV personality, Angie Best. Now, a video has resurfaced of a YouTube star discussing her and her partner's decision to give up their adopted child. The couple were unable to cope with the special needs of their son and rehomed him after 3 years. This raises many questions on the complicated ethics surrounding adoption, but one simple question resonates among all others. Should adoption be for life? Let's discuss this with the panel. Hilary, you are a best-selling author. You're also an agony aunt, a bit of an expert on affairs of the human soul. What's your view about this situation?
I'm kind of torn about this. Part of me thinks, my gut reaction is this is disgusting that they could, give up this child who's already been rejected once, presumably, is now being rejected again. But the other part of me thinks, actually, if this child is now going to go to a home where they can look after him properly, where he's going to get the care and attention he needs and the love that he needs, that's probably better for him in the long run than somebody keeping a child, looking after a child and not being able to cope with it and resenting it and hating it. And, that's why you get situations of abuse. So, I don't think they should have been able to adopt in the first place. And I certainly think that this is part of the problem with the whole kind of social media, YouTube generation of people who almost think, oh, let's adopt a child because we need content. And that's something that people will like and it will look nice in the pictures.
Well, yeah. I mean, I actually, full disclosure, I only had kids for clicks, I did it. It was for Twitter, really, especially the second one. But you do wonder, don't you, because people might not realise how many hoops you have to jump through to adopt in the first place. Well, and the big focus of all of those meetings and the endless questions and form filling is to guarantee that you will commit to this child.
Sure.
That's what they want to know.
Sure, and I know people who've tried to adopt in this country and it's incredibly difficult and some of them haven't been able to and they'd have been fantastic parents. Yeah. Whereas, you can go out to the pub, get pregnant and have a baby and, nobody looks into that, do they? Correct. Unless you actually do start doing anything really bad. So, but I think children, you have to just accept that children aren't going to necessarily be what you expect them to be. They're not going to be perfect little, packages that will do and say what you want. They are their own people and they may have issues, they may have problems. And even if they're perfectly healthy, they could be run over by a bus or something, we never know what's going to happen and love should be unconditional for children.
It's not a flat screen telly that you can send back to John Lewis.
No.
I mean, what do you think about this, Aidan? It's obviously a tough story and I'm sure that they returned this child with a heavy heart, but just the expression returned this child doesn't sit right, does it?
No, it paints the child as a commodity. Now, the principle of abandonment is not alien to us. My parents, for example, had care homes for people with learning difficulties in both the public and private sector, central London and Kent. We had a case where one of our residents he was part of a family of, I think it was 3 children, mum and dad. They emigrated to America in 1970 and just left the second eldest son here because they realised that the provision wasn't going to be quite the same in America as it is over here. In other words, it's going to be a lot more costly. So they left him in the care of my parents. My parents looked after him between 1970 and 2001. I believe he's deceased now. But his younger brother, to be fair to him, actually phoned my parents back in the late 90s and said, look, we understand I've got a brother he's never really been spoken about. Yeah. But can you tell me more about him? This guy had become a high flyer at a major multinational company and was coming back to England to do some work. And eventually we paired them up together and got the relationship going. But the point is that abandonment, the principle, is not a new thing. It's not just for the YouTube generation. This was going on in the early 70s. We just didn't talk about it as much.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, would you look at a change in the rules, Angie?
He was adopted in China, right? Mm. Of course you've got to look at a change of rules. And these are young people. Older generation wouldn't have given back. They'd have kept and they'd have stuck to it and they'd have done their due diligence. They would have done their work. Yeah.
In sickness and in health, it's a bit like marriage, isn't it?
Yeah, these kids don't come with training wheels, do they? I mean...
You pay extra for that.
It's diabolical that... I agree with what you said, Sweet Pea, when you said that it's better that it goes to the boy or a girl?
This was a boy.
goes to a home that can look after him and take care of him and deals with him better. They could have, but they obviously young, couldn't be bothered, didn't make the right picture, blah, blah, blah. It's the saddest thing. The fact that we're even talking about this is really sad.
It is. I mean, does it reflect a change in society's values?
Of
Almost
course
a
it
kind
does.
of consumer
well, that's why
culture.
It's sad.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it does. It's a big reflection of a horrible society that we are creating now.
What about parents who adopt babies and as the child grows and develops, they discover a variety of physical or mental issues which are related to the pregnancy outwith of their knowledge? So it's very common now for mothers to be alcoholics or
Babes,
drug addicts.
I've got a very good friend in California. She adopted 3 boys, knowing that they were all had alcoholic or drug addict parents. The parents had gotten rid of them. They were throwing them out on the street. She adopted all 3 of them. All 3 of them grew up with problems. She saw it through, and they're now, one's in a band, the other one's... They're all very successful, profitable children. They've grown up into fabulous kids. So if you commit, you commit. It's like any child you have, you want to have, you commit to it. Yeah. And it's as simple as that, really, in my mind.
Yeah, look, it's a very, very sad particular story.
Yes.
We don't have all the details, but it raises a question about the nature of our society.
Yes.
Look, we've got lots to get through. Don't forget, at 10 o'clock, the reality queen herself, she'll be talking about fame, about money, about plastic surgery, and about her hopes for the future. Katie Price, a notorious figure. She's never boring. She's an old friend of mine. We worked together back in the day, and she'll be telling her story at 10. Have you got questions for Katie Price? Drop me a line now, mark@gbnews.uk. So, your emails next, mark@gbnews.uk. But next up, is MP Lee Anderson right that Brits on a lower income should budget better? We'll be joined by politics legend and voice of common sense, Edwina Currie. See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Well, a big reaction to our discussion in The Big Question, is home ownership a human right? This from Alison Highmark. The Conservative government need to tell the country what they're paying to local authorities to build homes. If they don't disclose that sort of information, the Conservatives will be blamed all the time. Also, big reaction to my big opinion monologue, which Carl has now crafted into a clip on Twitter at GB News if you want to catch it back. Gary says, "Hi Mark, the BBC have completely lost the plot. I only listened to Radio 2 for Ken Bruce and Popmaster and then switched back to Greatest Hits Radio. So that will save me having to retune. Great show as always." Gary, thank you for that. Keep those emails coming. A quick extra line on housing from Eve. Is housing a human right, especially the dream of home ownership? Eve says, "Hi, Mark. Mainly people who already have other properties can afford to buy. My son and his partner, hoping to start a family, were fortunate enough to find compassionate vendors who sold to them as first-time buyers rather than the cash purchasers who also wanted the property. Perhaps there should be a limit to, say, 3 properties that can be owned by one person or couple." Eve, thank you very much for that. Keep those emails coming, Mark at gbnews.uk. Now, the Conservative MP Lee Anderson has come under fire this week after using a female aide's salary on Twitter to prove his claims that people on low incomes only use food banks because they can't budget. His tweet reads, "Katie works for me. She's single and earns less than 30k. Rents a room for £775 per calendar month in central London, has student debt, £120 a month on travelling to work, saves money every month, goes on foreign holidays and does not need to use a food bank. Katie makes my point really well." So is Lee Anderson right that Brits on a lower income should budget better? Let's speak now to former Conservative Cabinet Minister, best-selling author and radio and television presenter Edwina Currie. Hi, Edwina.
Hi, Mark. Hi.
Edwina, I think it's time for a dollop of Edwina common sense and calling a spade a spade. Do you think that those on a lower income should budget better, or is this a way of helping the government escape blame?
Well, I think Lee Anderson definitely has got a point that everyone should budget, and we all have our different preferences. I must say, I would not myself have tweeted something about a member of my staff. I don't think that's fair. That draws attention to them and can put them in the spotlight in ways that they haven't chosen. Lee Anderson might indeed have chosen to do it a little bit better, say, himself, rather than talking about poor Katie, who may be spending a very uncomfortable weekend as a result. Now, that said, everyone should budget. I mean, my entire generation was brought up with, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves, and waste not, want not, and all that stuff. And it drove us crazy when we were kids, and we couldn't understand why we could not have everything we wanted just when we said, I want. But it's more important to budget at times of rapid change, which is what we're living at the moment, of high inflation, of energy costs and transport costs being much higher than they were even before the pandemic, and of in many cases of salaries not being rising as fast as they did. So yeah, and especially if there's something, Mark, that you really want. If you really want, for example, to have your own house or your own flat, then that's got to be your priority, and you're going to have to budget extremely carefully. What Lee Anderson was really getting at, of course, was the argument that some of the strikers, the nurses or the teachers who get very good salaries, are being driven to use food banks. And he was really questioning that. A couple of MPs have been questioning that. How can somebody on a very substantial income, £40,000 a year or more, be driven to a food bank unless somehow they might be wasting money? It's a very, very good question.
However, perhaps they're paying for student debt, perhaps it's transport costs, it's inflation, which we all know about, and extortionate rent, Edwina. Lots of people are living off credit cards. I mean, Britain has a new problem, which is in-work poverty.
Well, if they're a nurse, they've almost certainly had a bursary, so they don't have a student debt. If they are a train driver, yeah, maybe they've got a degree in engineering, but most of them, I would think, probably are not university graduates. Although some university graduates might regard being a train driver as being a rather well-paid job that they've always aimed at. And we need all these people. What the unions are doing is arguing for pay rises for all of them, not just for the low pay. They're looking for pay rises of 11, 12, 15, 19% for people on £80,000 a year. That, I think, is wrong, and the unions are trying to massage the figures in ways that people like Lee Anderson MP are correctly challenging. What we all have to do is manage our money. We have to take responsibility. If our bills go up and our income does not go up, then we're going to have to make choices. And the thing that really worries me is the idea that it's all the government's fault. It's all the government's responsibility. All governments have to do is decide in the right way, and everything will be hunky-dory. And then, of course, we're setting ourselves up to be very disappointed in governments, because no government can do everything. And in fact, most governments can't do very much. And they're much better off, the government, the ministers, the Prime Minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, saying to people, yeah, be responsible and be careful how you use your money. It's your money. You can choose how to use it, choose your priorities, and make choices accordingly.
Oh, well, that's right. I think it was before the mini-budget. You went on Twitter and you sparked quite a debate when you said, I'm afraid the brutal truth is that governments can't do everything and we've got to manage expectations.
Oh, didn't I get that in the neck? I mean, you get it from all sides. You get it from Conservatives who want the government to do more. Let's solve the housing crisis. Well, pardon me, quite a lot of young people do manage to save the money and to buy a property and to get on the property market. Sometimes they do it with the help of families, and why not? Sometimes they do it by not going on a lot of holidays, maybe not getting that many nights out, and that's their choice. Sometimes they do it in other ways by perhaps not choosing to be in extremely expensive parts of the country. I tell you what worries me a little bit about Katie's budget is she's living in central London and spending a fortune on transport. Why didn't she get a bike?
Yeah, not a bad idea. On your bike. Edwina, I'm an admirer of Lee Anderson. I've interviewed him a couple of times. He's a real gentleman. And actually, he's got a fascinating life story himself. He's not a privileged man. He was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And he has existed on a very tight budget himself before entering Parliament. But is what he has said about food banks patronising to those in a lower income bracket? Is it condescending? And is it a gift for Labour?
I think he is talking the truth, and he's talking the truth as he sees it, which is really helpful. And as you say, he's a much more authentic personality than a lot of people on all the benches in the House of Commons. I have no objections to food banks if they are used to help people out of trouble. If that's what they're being used for, that's fine. If they're being used to play politics, I get very wary. I'll give you an example of a good one. St Malachy's in Manchester, in a very poor part of Manchester, where I went and made some film with, shall we say, a rival channel. And got chatting to the wonderful old nun who was in charge. And I asked her about the food bank, because we've seen people coming into the food bank clutching 3 mobile phones, you know, that sort of thing. And she said, look, we have to accept that some people abuse it, but the people who come in who really need it, we can then sit down with them, we can talk with them, we can help them through whatever the crisis is.
I'll have to stop you there. Amazing stuff, a fascinating anecdote. Katie Price is next. My thanks to Edwina Curry.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's 10 o'clock, and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. My Mark Meets guest is one of the best-known people in the country. It's showbiz royalty, Katie Price, who gives her first TV interview for 2 years. And there are plenty of truth bombs coming, let me tell you. Lots to get through in the news agenda with my panel. Could you survive on 2 alcoholic drinks a week? That's apparently what the medical experts are recommending. Good luck with that. And after an internet storm on the topic, how often should you wash your clothes? How often do you wash your shirts, your T-shirts, your jumpers and your smalls? Plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp. But next up, live on the programme, it is Katie Price. But first, the headlines with our own very glamorous Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. A series of fresh walkouts have been announced by the Unite union as the bitter dispute over pay and staffing continues. They're set to walk out for a further 10 days. The workers across England, Wales and Northern Ireland joined 10,000 ambulance staff with the GMB union and the Royal College of Nursing on the 6th of February. Downing Street says it's disappointed, but they're open to further discussions. Unite's ambulance workers are already set to walk out next Monday. Meanwhile, the National Education Union says teachers across England and Wales will go ahead with planned strikes from February the 1st for 7 days. It's part of an ongoing dispute over pay after talks today failed to reach a resolution. The NEU says the action could affect more than 23,000 schools. The strike coincides with walkouts by staff at universities, train drivers and 100,000 civil servants. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been holding talks today with 50 Western nations in Germany to garner further support in their fight against Russia. Kyiv have requested 300 tanks. The US announced a further £2 billion worth of support for Ukraine, while the UK says it will provide 14 Challenger tanks. Meanwhile, Germany have yet to make a decision on whether they will send tanks to the war-torn country. And the head of NATO's military committee, Admiral Rob Bauer, says countries must make their own decision on giving tanks to Ukraine. The Met Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, has promised a thorough review of the force's culture and standards in an effort to root out corrupt officers such as former officer David Carrick. Mr Rowley said the next 2 years are critical to achieving our goals and including assurances such as investing in diversity to become what he calls an anti-racist organisation. Meanwhile, the National Police Chiefs Council are urging police chiefs across England and Wales to have all officers checked against national databases by the end of March. It comes in the wake of the crimes committed by former police officer Carrick, who admitted 49 criminal charges, including 24 counts of rape. And the Prime Minister has been given a fixed penalty notice by Lancashire Police for failing to wear a seatbelt whilst in the back of a moving car. The Prime Minister was filming a social media clip on his way to yesterday's Levelling Up announcement in the North West. He's already apologised, with his spokesman saying he made an error of judgment. In a statement, Downing Street says Mr Sunak will comply with the fine that could be up to £500. TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's over to Mark Dolan tonight.
My thanks to Tatiana Sanchez, who returns in an hour's time at 11. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Mark Dolan Tonight, the home of viral videos. And big stories, big guests and always big opinions in the news agenda with my panel. Could you survive on just 2 alcoholic drinks a week? That's the latest health advice. I'd say good luck with that one. Also, after an internet storm on the topic, how often should you wash your clothes? How often do you wash your T-shirts, your jumpers and your smalls? Plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. All of that to come, but first it's time for this. Yes, it's time for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of showbiz, politics, business and beyond. Tonight, one of the best-known women in the country, whose life story has been as compelling as her career. Katie Price's life in the limelight started early, with a modelling career that began at the age of 13 for a clothing line. But it was in 1996 when she rebranded herself as Jordan and appeared topless on page 3 in the Sun newspaper that her life changed forever. And after that, her face and her body dominated magazine front covers and newspaper front pages for decades. There followed a career in reality TV with 2 appearances in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Celebrity Big Brother, which, of course, she famously won, 6 of her own reality TV series, including Katie Price, My Crazy Life, Ain't That the Truth, and many other hits. Katie has also released 6 autobiographies, 11 novels and 2 series of children's books. Her Angel novel series topped the Sunday Times bestseller list. She's also a devoted mum to 5 much-loved children. She's had her ups, she's had her downs, but she's nothing if not a survivor, and the word boring is not in her vocabulary. Katie Price, welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight.
Good evening. Long time no speak.
Definitely. It's brilliant to see you again, looking so well. You've been a household name now. I can't believe I'm saying this, but for the best part of 4 decades. What's your secret?
Well, for one, I look younger, don't I?
Yes, you do.
And you know, I was just hearing you talk about all this stuff that I've done, and it's quite amazing, actually, that I have actually done quite a lot in my career, and I'm still here, and I don't know why I'm still here. And I've definitely had my ups, definitely had my downs, but I am a survivor.
Yeah. And why do you think public interest in you is so enduring?
I think it's probably because I am actually quite down to earth, and I genuinely have been through traumatic experiences, and I've come on top, and I talk about everything that happens in my life. So I suppose I could be inspiring for people. I don't ever do anything right. I don't, you know, there are people who think I'm their role model, but I do a lot of things wrong as well. So
yeah, I mean, you talk about traumatic experiences. Are there any in particular that really stand out as you look back?
There's loads. There's loads. You know, I was hijacked filming. Obviously, ex-husbands have been traumatic. I broke my feet. My mum being ill. I don't know. There's just quite a lot of things. I've had 3 kidnap threats. Ransoms, it just all happens to me. And actually, my therapist said to me, he's never met someone who's had actual real trauma events happen in their life as me. Because sometimes one person might have one bit of trauma and they're affected. I've had loads. No, I'm so sorry about, you know, so many of the things you've been through since we worked together. And, you know, as I said, you are a total survivor. You're incredibly genuine. Yeah. What you see is what you get with Katie Price, with the Pricey. But what about that accident, your feet? What happened? Well, I was on holiday with the kids, getting my teeth done. As you can see, look, they're so white. But at the same time, I was mucking about with the kids. Did you floss today? Nah, I don't need to floss. But as I was saying, I was on holiday with the kids while I was getting my teeth. Now, we've just lost lovely Katie. Just jumped over a bush in the dark and I fell 20-foot drop into an underground car park. And, well, I'm lucky to be alive, actually. Yeah. And did the surgeons do a good job and are you OK now? Oh, I can't hear you. Katie, can you hear me now? Do you hear me? Hang on, I can't hear you. This is live TV. Can you hear me? Yeah. Do you know what I think is happening, Katie? I think that your teeth are affecting the signal. I don't know what's happened, but I can't hear you. What we'll do, we're going to reconnect with lovely Katie Price. I told you that this woman does not have the word boring in her vocabulary. Let me tell you a story about Katie Price, because we worked together a few years ago on an internet radio station called Fubar Radio, which is a brilliant radio station that I'd highly recommend you check out. It showcases a lot of talent, Fubar Radio. Well, we did a show there. This was before GB News. I was desperate to have a broadcast platform where I could have free speech. And, well, Fubar did the job and they managed to pair up me and Katie Price as co-presenters of a morning show. And we broke the internet pretty much every week because of the outrageous things that Katie said. They sounded far-fetched, but they were all true because she's just one of those people that has a crazy life. But I'll never forget the fact that we had our first production meeting and all the bosses were there and it was all really important and high level, except she had her baby Jet with her in a pram. And she's basically rocking baby Jet whilst discussing, you know, the important matters of a radio show. She then sort of scoops him up out of the pram. She's feeding him with milk and being the ultimate mother. And that's Katie Price all over. Businesswoman, celebrity and mum. Katie, I'm so glad we got you back. Listen, how are you feeling since that accident? Are you better? I'm getting it. Obviously, it's been a life-changing experience for me. I can't ever run again, although I did say to the surgeons, what if I'm in my air boots? Do you think I'll be able to do a marathon again? They said no. But But other than that, I can still horse ride, but there are other exercises I can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unusual because I was in a wheelchair for 10 months. So I've experienced what it's like being in a wheelchair, and people do treat you different when you're in a wheelchair. And well, I've experienced it, and I have respect for people who are in a wheelchair because it's not easy to get around.
Yeah, and also, did you feel that you were sort of spoken to differently, that you're kind of a second-class citizen when you're in a wheelchair?
It is definitely different, completely, and people do stare at you. But what was the weird thing for me, because I just met Cole, it was a month into our relationship, and then straight away, there he is caring for me, because I literally could not walk. So, but, you know, I've got through it. I've got a few more operations to go, and life goes up, isn't it? So...
Yeah, I mean, how do you handle these ups and downs, Katie? Are you a positive thinker? How is your mental health?
Do you know, the best thing I do now, I have therapy every week. I wish I had it years ago. For example, I know what my triggers are now. Like on my Instagram and stuff, you'll notice I don't really attack anyone or do anything anymore. Because where's it going to get me? It doesn't get you anywhere. So now, like, even if I receive a text from someone and I want to go back, I think about it, and then I just don't bother. And it has helped a lot, yeah.
You are, I've got to say, radiant. It's not just the teeth and your skin tone. You look brilliant, but I can see that you're in a good place as well, and this is fantastic news. I just told the viewers when we lost the line there a story about you and me at Fubar, the internet radio station. I thought it was a great show, great radio station. It's still going. And I talked about the first really important production meeting. We're discussing the programme, and you had Jet with you, who was probably about 1 at the time, your baby son, and you're having the meeting, and you're also feeding your baby. And I thought that was typical of you.
And heavily pregnant at the time. Do you remember I was heavily pregnant as well?
That's exactly right. So you're feeding a baby and incubating the next one. Family always comes first, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, like tonight, literally, if you saw what I've got on underneath, in fact, I haven't got anything on because I've just sorted Harvey out. The kids are out there and I'm like, kids, you've got to be quiet while I'm on telly. I've just had to calm Harvey down. I'm like, quit. Anyway, that's my life. And I absolutely love it.
I do hope we can have a word with Harvey. He's a very special kid, a very bright kid. And you've looked after him. You know, some viewers won't know, but he's had quite a few health challenges, issues with his sight, autism, and a disorder called Prader-Willi syndrome. You're very proud of him, but you've been through a lot looking after him, often on your own. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, any carer out there or nurse or anyone like that, I give you so much respect because... You know, I don't think a lot of people appreciate the hard work that goes into looking after someone like Harvey. So generally, there's a lot of people out there who know I've done it on my own. They know how hard work it is. And I wouldn't change it for anything. Like this weekend, I know I'm not going to get much sleep. I know I've got to basically be his slave. Mum, do this, Mum, do that. But I wouldn't change it for anything. I love it. My house is hectic, full of kids, animals, and I would not change it.
How do you feel? Yeah, I mean, and that's it. Look, if he's around after the break, do pop him in front of the camera and we'll say hi. I know how much you love him, and you know, I think that it's so creditable to you what you've done with Harvey off your own bat, often without money and certainly without much spousal support. Let's talk about the media. They made you, Katie. Have they tried to break you as well?
So this is the thing. I am in this industry. And I've shared a lot of my life and I wouldn't change it. I'm very lucky that I can Google things and look back at my life. But I used to have a really good relationship with the media. But now it's like, I'm not joking, every single day they write something and most of it, 99% of it is untrue. Like, they're awful to me at the minute. It's like they always want to put me down, down, down. So I kind of get used to it, but it is draining and, you know, it has affected my mental health, but they still do it. They are cruel. The media is not the same anymore. Like they don't like it. If I do put something on Instagram, they do ask me to take it down, probably because I've got more people that follow me than buy their magazines or newspapers. So I have a taste of your own medicine. Really.
Katie, why do you think the media have changed? Is it social media? Why are they so bitchy now, so negative?
I think the English media are the worst media anyway, but, you know, I've loved working with them all through the years. You know, I've loved my press calls, but I wish they would give me a break because I'm not a bad person at all. I'm actually a good person. I've got a good heart, but I have surrounded myself with people who have taken advantage of my kindness as a weakness. But yeah, if there's journalists out there, just give me a break. It's like, you know, I'm back. I've hit rock bottom and I've come out of that rut. And now there's a comeback for the price.
Well, too right. That's what the next part of this conversation is all about, because after the break, we're going to talk money, we're going to talk plastic surgery, and we're going to talk about Katie's incredible new project. The comeback is on. Katie Price is back in 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight, and a Mark Meets special with model, entrepreneur, author and TV personality Katie Price. Katie, welcome back. A quick one for you. Any more kids?
I would love more kids. Love more kids. Actually, well, you need to look out for Channel 4 because there's a surprise coming this year.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you've given me a clue about that, because let's talk about your comeback. You've got your health back, you look fantastic, and you are ready to essentially be back on telly, back in magazines, and, of course, across all media. What's the plan?
Well, obviously, I've been filming my mucky mansion. I'm on the second series. That goes to air next month. And then I start filming the third series. Then the BBC have started the documentary of Harvey, which I'm proud he had an NTA twice on the trot. Sadly, he didn't win, even though he thought he had won. He stood up and clapped for himself. So I'm just doing lots more TV. Obviously, I do my OnlyFans as well, which I love doing because that's like reminds me of the old times when I used to do like Loaded, FHM and all of that. Yeah, I'm just doing a lot of TV stuff, really. I pick and choose what I want to do now. I don't have a manager. I just manage myself and I'm a lot happier that way.
Credit to Channel 4 for commissioning Katie Price's Mucky Mansion. It's fantastic telly. Have you enjoyed doing that?
I love it because it means I'm at home and I'm working at home and putting my house back together because it was literally sitting here for 2 years and, you know, because of the trauma that I had here, I just couldn't get into the house. But now I absolutely love it. But the house is too big for me, really. 11 bedrooms is a little bit too big.
And do you still feel comfortable at the idea of photo shoots for men's magazines? Is that something that you're ready to do again?
Do you know, I absolutely love getting my kit off. That's why I do OnlyFans. But they don't really do men's mags anymore. But then I've done the ultimate. You know, I was the cover of Playboy for the American one. I was Decade Girl of the Year for Loaded. I've done loads of FHM. You know, I've been in the 100 Sexiest. Why don't I blow my trumpet just a little bit more? But no, seriously, when you look back at what I've done, it's actually an incredible journey. And I started when I was 17. There's not a lot of 17-year-olds who would literally fly around the world on their own and just do photo shoots. And, you know, yeah. And had a child really early and brought him up on my own as well.
Now, I remember asking you, Katie, about the early parts of your career. And when you started in the industry, I think you wanted a career, obviously. You wanted to make a bit of cash. Did you always want to be famous as well?
My dream job, well, I was training to be a registered nurse and then I got into this industry, but I swear I didn't think I'd last this long. I always wanted to be famous, but trust me, it's not what it's cut out to be. And I know there's lots of people out there who want to be famous. And yeah, the money helps. But to be honest, I'm not money orientated anyway. I never have done. I'm not a flash person, although I do like my pink cars, but I'm banned from driving. But yeah, money's, you know, money can be the root to all evil as well. And I've had many experiences in my life where people get greedy around me with money and it just ruins things, really. So I'd rather look poor and be rich. There you go.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad shout. Look, I don't want to ask a personal question about your finances, but you've had your ups and downs money-wise. Yeah. Some people have said you were worth 60 million. Is that true? And have you still got it?
I never discuss money, but also anyone who's out there in a bankruptcy, it's not the end of the world. You know, lots of people go into bankruptcies. And I think it's quite good that I'm in a bankruptcy, actually. So, it's made me revalue things and put things straight. So I'm happy. Everything in my life is in place. Never be embarrassed about being in a bankruptcy at all. But all I know is just don't have fights with people because the lawyers are the ones who get the money.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm really glad that you're in a good place financially. I mean, do you feel like you can rebuild so that you have what you and your family need in the years to come? Do you feel like you can recover?
Do you know what, Mark? I don't think, I know, and I am. That's what I mean. And also, at the end of the summer, I'm doing another theatre tour. Also, it's Junior's 18th this year, Princess's 16th and Harvey's 21st. So I'm looking for a nightclub out there who want to enjoy celebrating Harvey's 21st because he wants to be in a nightclub with a Barney themed. So why not do an event where people can buy tickets and enjoy Harvey's 21st? So if there's any clubs out there that want to do that, bring it on.
Reach out. And actually, the email, mark@gbnews.uk. And if you are a club that would like to accommodate what would surely be the party of the year, drop me a line. I'll pass that on to Katie. Katie, tell me about OnlyFans. Now, this is a popular subscription service. And in a subscription service, Members of the public pay a certain amount every month and they get exclusive photographs and video content from the pricey. Tell me more.
Well, the thing is, like, a lot of girls now on Instagram or all these social media, they literally show nothing in bikinis and underwear. Now, with me, because I made a career out of it, I'm not just going to do that for nothing. So when OnlyFans came along, first of all, I was a bit like, oh, you know, because I don't do the porn side, you know, because you can go as far as you like on it. But you don't have to do that. So I've realised I'm quite happy doing what I did before, underwear, swimwear and behind the scene content that people don't see on social media. And I absolutely love it. I enjoy it so much and I'm good at it. And there's only one pricey.
Yeah, too right. And actually, it's not a bad income stream. I think that Kerry Katona's made a fortune on OnlyFans. Is she a rival?
No, there's loads of... Do you know, it doesn't matter what you look like at all. OnlyFans is a platform anyone can go on, even you, Mark. Even you.
What would my look be on OnlyFans, Katie?
Well, I don't know. What are your hidden secrets, Mark?
Well, I'm not sure they're worth seeing, I'll be honest with you. You'll have to ask Mrs. Dolan.
But as talking about Kerry was trying to get me to do it ages ago. And I'm glad I've done it now. And I'm glad, like, Kerry's in a good place now and turned herself around. And I'm really pleased for it. She's one of the many people who's been around ages and she's still there.
When we did a radio show together, you talked about your breast augmentation. And I can't remember what happened, but your chest size has kind of grown and then shrunk, hasn't it, and come back again. A little bit like the British economy. Do you know what I mean? Peaks and troughs. Are you planning any further procedures? Will you ever have plastic surgery again, Katie?
Oh, my God, that's just a no-brainer, isn't it? What do you think? Of course. These are actually the biggest I've ever been. They are 2,120 cc. But the thing is, in the daytime, when you see me, people can't understand why I've had them done because I never show them unless it's for OnlyFans, but I do it for myself, not for the jobs. If there's anyone out there who wants to get their boobs done, do it for yourself, not for anyone else or for your career.
OK, I mean, that just for the uninitiated, that's about 2 kilos per breast, because I made a documentary about, it's you know, it's a fair old package, let me tell you. But can I just finally finish with this one, Katie?
Oh, here we go.
Which is
the final question.
Yeah, exactly. Last and final question. What do you want from the future?
What I want from the future is I definitely want to make a comeback and prove to people, because I've been there, told my story. Literally, I hit rock bottom that bad that I tried to commit suicide, and I've come up from that. And remember, nothing is that bad. It's just when you're in that bad place, your mind ruminates and you think you can't get out of that rut. But you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So I want to bring my perfumes out, makeup, underwear, swimwear, calendars, everything I used to do. But the difference this time, I haven't got a manager doing it. I'm doing it myself. So look forward to all them press calls again. And who knows, maybe I can do a TV programme with you, Mark.
We'd love to have you at GB News, let me tell you, because you're everything our viewers like. You're authentic, you're keeping it real. What you see is what you get. Katie Price, congratulations on an incredible career, an amazing life. Love to the kids, love to Harvey.
Thank you so much.
And the other 4.
I did try and ask him, actually, in the break. I did say, Harv, do you want to come on TV? He went, no, thanks, Mummy. So that was that.
Yeah.
Also, I'll be bringing out my 5th autobiography. 5 years ago was the last one. And trust me, Jesus, that's the one to read.
Unputdownable, just like Katie herself. Katie, a thrill to see you again. Do join us in the studio soon, and thanks for making the time. The one, the only, guys. Katie Price. Fascinating conversation. We'll look back to reality next, because we got the papers. It's tomorrow's front pages. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, it's time now for tomorrow's papers, and we start with The Times. And they lead with Javid Bak's fee to see a GP. Charging for GP appointments and A&E visits is crucial to the survival of the NHS, former Health Secretary Sajid Javid has declared. Also, Kemi Badenoch, the Minister for Women and Equalities, has said the law must not conflate trans people with predators. How about the Daily Mail now? Labour's woman problem. A Labour MP has declared her party has a woman problem. Rosie Duffield spoke out today after she was jeered by male colleagues in the Commons and then shunned by party leaders. She said it felt as if she was in an abusive relationship. And in a blow to Sir Keir Starmer's hopes of becoming Prime Minister, the 51-year-old MP admitted she would struggle to convince voters that Labour was not sexist. Well, we know a lot about that story on this programme because Rosie Duffield was an exclusive guest on Mark Dolan Tonight last Sunday when we broke this story. The Daily Express next. Shock death of high street banks by 2027. Banking campaigners are calling for high street branches to be saved from extinction as analysts warn almost all will be shut within 4 years. Every bank branch gone by 2027. The Daily Mirror now. Lawbreaker PM number 2, another fine mess. Sunak punished for seatbelt blunder video. Rap comes months after Partygate payout. Are we seriously comparing and conflating those two stories? I'll ask my panel whether they give a damn about Rishi Sunak's seatbelt, or should the media belt up? The Eye weekend. Keep children at home during school strikes. Head teachers tell parents. The Independent. Tory party chairman is made to pay £1 million fine to taxman, and he tried to gag the Independent with threats over revealing his HMRC dispute. The Sun newspaper, Coronation Silks ditched. Charles told to drop his breeches. Brilliant headline of the day. King Charles has been told to break with centuries of tradition and drop the wearing of silk stockings and breeches at his coronation. The monarch has opted to wear military uniform instead when he's crowned at Westminster Abbey on May the 6th. A senior source said senior aides think breeches look too dated. Well, he's got a great pair of pins. I say, bring on the breeches. Telegraph next. Holiday boost as EU delays fingerprint checking. And Sunak fined for not wearing seatbelt. Also, Germany refuses request to send tanks to Ukraine. And the Daily Star, #1 for boffins. Eternal youth, sorted it, mate. Eggheads reverse ageing with sound therapy. The vexing issue of everlasting youth appears to have been cracked by eggheads using low-frequency sound waves. And those are your front pages. Let's get reaction now from my all-star panel of agony aunt and best-selling author Hilary Freeman, broadcaster and journalist Aidan McGee, and television personality and entrepreneur Angie Best. And let's have a look at all of these front pages. I'm very interested in this story, Angie Best. Sajid Javid, the former health secretary, backs a fee to see your GP. In other words, you pay a certain amount of money for an appointment with the GP. He argues it will save the NHS millions.
Well, see, last time I was on, I told you that. I asked you this. I said, Are they doing all this stuff with the NHS because they want to privatise it? They don't want the NHS anymore. And this is just proof, if you ask me. They don't want the NHS. But you see, you've got all these people that come in from other countries and come off the boats, and they go to their local hospitals because they want to get all the things fixed that they couldn't get fixed in their country. And then it's down to our hospitals and NHS to do it. It's badly managed, that's all. We've got enough of everything. We just don't know how to manage it properly because it's too big.
However, if we had to pay a certain amount for a GP appointment, I'm assuming this policy would be, would accommodate those on low income. So I think if you don't have the money, I suspect you get a free appointment. But for those that can afford it, would it not make people appreciate the service they're getting a little better?
I don't know, because if I'm going to pay to see a GP, I don't want that GP to be run by the Big Pharma. Right. I don't want him to answer my questions with 2 words, and I don't want 5 minutes. And I want much better quality if I'm going to pay to go and see a doctor.
I mean, lots of people book GP appointments and don't turn up, which is a huge drain on the nation's resources, Hilary.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know how they manage to book them anymore if they let alone not turn up for them.
I mean, it's easier to get tickets for Peter Kay, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Or Madonna.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with Angie. If you have to pay for something, then you expect a certain thing in return, and it's going to destroy the doctor-patient relationship, the doctor-patient contract that we have in this country, and we have done for a long time, where the GP is somebody that you trust and who you confide in and who cares about you. It's going to become like a transaction. And also, what about, if you're somebody who has a lot of different things wrong with you, it's like a tax on being ill, isn't it? It's like, you have to make a lot of appointments, so you have to pay for them. If you're healthy and you never see your GP from one year to the next...
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a crass parallel, but here we go. I don't mind. I'm not afraid. I am the new Alan Partridge. Aidan McGee, I ride a moped, and there are some boroughs now, because the bike bays for mopeds were always free.
Yeah.
And then the boroughs charged £1 a day just to organise the bays a little better. And people were up in arms about it. But I thought it was a game changer, because before you had the charge, people essentially dumped their motorbikes. They'd sit there for weeks on end, sometimes for months on end, getting dusty and neglected. The minute people paid £1 a day, suddenly the bays were clear, you had space to park. If people found that, even if it was a tenner for an appointment...
That's the price point I was thinking, yes.
Well, there you go. And it meant that they could actually get an appointment that day. I wonder whether people would embrace that.
Yeah, they would. I mean, I'm also a big fan of e-consults. I'm type 1 diabetic. I use the service quite often. I quite like going on my laptop and speaking to someone face-to-face through a video lens. That's absolutely fine with me. In fact, my local surgery have been great with me in the last few weeks, just dispensing insulin and things like that. The point about the pound for the bike bay, that's interesting. So I remember when I was a kid, all the mainline stations around London started charging I think it was about 20p, 30p to go to the toilet. You were literally having to spend a penny to spend a penny. And so I thought, originally I thought it was scandalous. And then I thought, actually, you know what? The toilet's really clean. They're always attended. They're open late. There's an in and out sort of turnstile kind of thing. It was like going to a football match almost, you know. And I thought it was quite good. And then I've and recently they've actually done away with it. So I don't know what's happened there.
It's probably COVID.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, it probably is. But I didn't think, having thought that was a bad idea in the first place, I thought it was actually not a bad idea.
But the difference between that and paying for your doctor's appointment
I know,
is
it's a little bit different.
If you pay for your doctor's appointment, you think people are going to think, and this is what happens with a lot of other things that you have to start paying for.
Yeah.
Well, I've paid my money. I've done my part.
Already paid.
If I don't turn up, it doesn't really matter because I've paid.
Yeah.
So actually, that's not going to help, is it?
I guess it's not. The Daily Mail, an interesting story, Aidan. Labour's woman problem. This is Rosie Duffield, who spoke on this programme last Sunday about issues around trans ideology. This woman is not a bigot. She's not a transphobe. She simply stood up for women's hard, long-fought-for rights, female-only spaces, and against the idea of trans ideology, which challenges the notion of biological sex. Is this Labour's new anti-Semitism?
Yeah, I think it certainly is. I also think it could be an Achilles heel for them at the next election. I don't necessarily think it's the kind of thing that can lose an election for them. But I do think it was something that the Tories will go at again and again and again. Even other parties who are looking to challenge a party that probably. It looks like they might form a government next time, even if it's only if it's a hung parliament or a narrow majority. But I think, it could certainly come back. I mean, I think it was Keir Starmer gave that interview with Nick Ferrari maybe 18 months ago, saying he believes in safe spaces for women, but he stopped short of actually defining what a woman is, unless I've got that wrong. So correct. I think, but it's something that keeps being levelled back at him again and again and again. As I say, I'm not necessarily sure it's an election loser or election winner even, but it's going to come back at them, certainly.
What do you think about this, Hilary? Because I do think that it could be Keir Starmer is haunted by that interview in which he wasn't willing to define what a woman was.
Yeah, and I think
he said it's a difficult question. I don't think it is a difficult question.
No, it isn't a difficult question. I think he's scared of offending people, and he needs to stand up and get a backbone and say, right, this is what I believe, because otherwise it is the same. In a way, it is like the anti-Semitism situation where. There's this cult going on, basically, and he is trying to appease everybody rather than actually saying what he thinks and fighting against it.
Saying what he thinks is common sense. A woman's a woman, a man's a man. You know, he's not going to offend anybody by
Careful,
saying
Angie, that will get you cancelled, that kind of rhetoric.
Good.
I mean, this is an element of it that she was shouted down by other Labour MPs, and that's why she's written this latest article.
It's pretty hard not to shout her down. She does have some verbal stuff that I'd shout down too sometimes.
Okay.
I don't know. She's not my favourite.
I'd be staggered if you did a straw poll across all Labour voters. I mean, obviously it's hypothetical, but I'd be staggered if most people didn't take umbrage to that comment, even if they agree with most of the other things that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party stands for.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, look, lots more to get through from the papers, including that story in the Daily Express. Shock death of the high street banks by 2027. In 4 years' time, it's predicted all the branches will be gone. Do you need your branch? We'll discuss that very, very shortly. Also, Charles is going to get rid of those fancy tights that he would normally traditionally wear as the incoming monarch. He's going to wear military fatigues instead. What do you think about that? How should he dress for the coronation? Also, based upon the latest medical health advice, could you survive on just 2 alcoholic drinks a week? And after an internet storm on the topic, how often should you wash your clothes? See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
A big reaction on email to our conversation about the NHS. Former Health Secretary Sajid Javid has said we should pay for GP appointments. That is in the Times newspaper. This from Nicholas. How will waste and mismanagement get viewed if people get taxed on top of mandatory tax already being taken before it goes to the bank? How about this from Leslie Ann, who says, hi. So do we not have to pay national insurance anymore if we're paying for NHS GP visits? This is our service that we pay for, that the NHS has forgotten in their wokeness that we own and that we bankroll. Leslie Ann goes on, it does not belong to the nurses or doctors, it's ours. I bet you don't read this, as you seem to be more like the BBC than you like to believe. Oh, Leslie Ann, what a slap in the face. Surely not. But Leslie Ann, if you catch me slipping into BBC mode at any time, you drop me an email and I'll deal with it. Because that word, those three letters are very triggering. Thank you, Leslie Ann. Keep those emails coming. I love it when we agree. I love it when we don't agree. That's what this show is all about. A quick word on Prince Charles, the Sun newspaper. Charles told to drop his breeches. The silks, these rather fancy tight stockings are going to go, and he's going to wear military apparel instead. You're a bit of a clothes horse, Angie. What's your view on this?
Oh, no, I think he should wear his kilt.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's got to wear his kilt and his sporran.
He looks good in a kilt, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he looks excellent.
How big do you think his sporran actually is?
Don't be vulgar.
Careful. It's actually not about the monarch. He could send me to the tower.
Exactly.
Old Charles, he's actually a pretty elegant guy, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
I'm just going to show you what the Sun have done with the mock-up. But this is there's real fancy silks. OK. Oh, there you go. Let's just show our viewers as well. But really, really traditional, almost medieval garments.
Oh, yeah, it's a bit outdated, isn't it?
Yeah. So you think, what do you think? Drop the breeches?
Yeah.
Yeah? Aidan, you are the best-dressed man on GB News.
I quite like the tights. I've worn tights twice in my life. One was to a wedding when I was 5 because my trousers were too itchy, so my mum got me some tights to take away the itching. And last year I went to a fancy dress party dressed as Margaret Thatcher, so I had to put some tights on as well. So they were quite comfortable, so I'd be going with those.
The Iron McGee. This Aidan's not for turning. How about a quick story also in The Express, but it's an important story. Shock death of the high street banks by 2027. Banks to close. All high street branches gone gone in 4 years? Yes or no, Hillary?
I don't think that that's likely. But then saying it again, I haven't been to my bank for about 5 years, so...
Do we need them?
Of course
I think old people need them, yes.
Yes. I
Angie?
was in the bank the other day and I
That's
noticed...
because you've got loads of dosh.
And I thought about... while I was standing there, all these old people in line, and they just desperately wanted to talk to their teller. Good morning, Roger. Oh, what do I do with this letter, darling? And I thought, what's going to happen to all those old people?
Yeah.
When there's no bank.
What I would say
but
is...
this is the cashless society that they want.
Dystopian. I would beef up the role of post offices, and I'd have one in every town and village, Ava.
Oh, that's ludicrous too, because
Really?
it's not owned by Royal Mail, it's owned by a French company, and our post office in Henley has got one poor little woman serving the whole of Henley, and she just can't do it.
That's a lot of Bowden catalogue
they've closed all the post
packages to deal with, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. I was in the post office too, taxing my car.
Blimey.
And I noticed that the line goes during the lunch hour when everybody runs to the post office, goes out the door, and the post office doesn't care. He's scratching his head?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I think it's lice. We're going to talk about learned laundry in a minute.
Sorry.
He hasn't washed his shirt in a while. Bless him. The line goes out the door, and there's just not enough money put into running post offices to make them be able to function as banks as well.
Yeah.
Banks need to change the way they operate if they expect people not to use branches. If you buy a house now, you still have to go to the branch to make the cash transfer.
Yeah, fair point. What about this? Health experts in Canada have advised that 0 alcoholic drinks is the only safe limit. Blimey, I won't be going to Canada anytime soon. Health experts in the UK are offering a compromise of 2 alcoholic drinks per week. Blimey, Aidan, what's the point?
Yeah, I know. I've not had a drink since Sunday, and I actually feel better for it, actually.
Okay.
So, but it's only 5. I know it's only 5 days, but I mean, normally I'd go have one every 3-4 days. Just that tiny change has made a difference to me. I have a little spell of no alcohol, maybe twice a year, for about a month or so.
Do you?
It does me good, yeah. I think it's important to recalibrate, especially when you're diabetic.
But I mean, I'd obviously advise anyone, if you've got a problem, go and see a GP. But I do wonder, 2 drinks a week, what is the point, Hillary? Or is that just me? Am I revealing a lot with that question?
Yeah, I think you are. I probably only have about, on average, 2 drinks a week.
OK.
I'm not. Yeah, I am a really cheap date.
And what are those 2 drinks?
Usually a gin and slimline.
Oh, nice. Yeah, decent. Well, you're a bit of a health guru, so you probably think alcohol-free,
I have
right?
2 a month. If you have to have more than 2 a week, you want to look at your mental health, number one, why you're so stressed and needing alcohol, and then worry about your liver and your kidneys, because your liver's never getting a chance to clean itself, and the alcohol is an alcohol, and it hardens the liver. We all know about that. So
there you go. Well, look, we're about to come to our last story, but let's balance out that debate in relation to Rosie Duffield, the Labour MP, and that trans debate. And there are plenty of members of the trans community who feel deeply offended and, frankly, quite unsafe having to go to a facility that does not accommodate them in the gender to which they identify. So, there's 2 sides to every coin, and that's a debate that we will continue to have here on the channel. Now, look, let's get to our last story. I've been looking forward to this. Well done to Rebecca on the team for spotting it. In fact, it's just a few seconds we've got for it. A debate on TikTok, how often to wash your clothes. For example, nightwear. A person online said she's been in the same pyjamas for 3 weeks. So what do we think?
Sad. We actually have to be talking about this, telling people when and how to wash their clothes.
Well, I don't think you need to wash your pyjamas until they start getting crunchy and until they start talking back to you.
My QPR dressing gown has not been washed since I took it out of the packaging 5 years ago.
And why would you? It's probably got the DNA of various footballers on it, hasn't it?
Yeah, I hope
so. Didn't mean it like that, Hillary.
Why are you wearing pyjamas?
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's not 1987.
I've slept naked for 15 years.
Hillary, you got any laundry rules?
We're so cold in my boat, I have to wear about 6 layers under my pyjamas.
You live in a boat. I've got a rule, which is smalls every day. Otherwise, just wait till people complain. Thanks to my brilliant panel. Please come back soon, folks. And most importantly, to you for your company. We'll do it all again tomorrow at 8 with the People's Hour. Headliners is next.
Hello. It was a beautiful day out there on Friday, and it's going to stay that way into the weekend for England and Wales. Milder conditions, though, in the far west, spreading into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland during the evening, accompanied by wet and windy weather as well. Meanwhile, for much of the UK, as we head into Friday evening, it's clear skies and light winds, temperatures soon falling below freezing widely, and by the end of the night, -3, -4 Celsius across much of the UK, -7 to -10 degrees over some parts of snow-covered northern England and northeast Scotland. Freezing fog patches around first thing as well, from the Vale of York into the Midlands, Welsh Marches, southwest England. They'll be slow to clear, could cause some issues on the roads first thing. But a completely different story for western Scotland and for Northern Ireland. Here, cloud and rain will have been increasing through the night, and a strengthening wind with gales around western coasts of Scotland and the Northern Isles by the afternoon, along with those outbreaks of rain. Those outbreaks of rain will reach parts of the Grampians, falling into cold air, leading to the risk of freezing rain by the afternoon here. But apart from the cloudy, breezy, damp weather in the northwest, we're also going to see plenty of dry weather across much of the rest of the UK, with clear skies once again leading to widespread frost. This time it's more confined on Saturday night to the southeastern quarter of the UK, with the East Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast seeing temperatures widely below -3 Celsius, and some freezing fog once again to contend with. Elsewhere across the UK, it's a cloudy and damp start to Sunday. Outbreaks of rain into Scotland, Northern Ireland, western fringes of England and Wales, an increasing breeze and increasingly mild temperatures by Sunday and Monday in some western areas up to 10 or 11 Celsius. Meanwhile, we keep the chilly air in the southeast into the start of next week.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no